Be cool, be kind, be classy. The cupcakes so sweet and sexy. Have fun and enjoy the journey. Or just have a good attorney. No big whoop, no biggie. She lives near New York City. And not just a YouTube show. When you know, you better grab a straw. Learn about the law. It's cool here in the shade, sipping motions of lemonade. Cool heads will prevail, kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Oh, Melanie Little is going live. Oh no, where is Melanie? Follow the island's melody. There's a concert within reach. No surprise, she's at Jones Beach. She heard some music far away. Captain Jack Stack Harbor Bay. He sings and his piano plays. Not all sounds are waterways. Speaking Yiddish and Latin, it's not just for Manhattan. It's for Goethe and Machegas. Ridiculous that insanus. Oy vey, Marcus. Proset, that's for schmucks. Be cool, be kind, be classy. My cupcakes sweet and sassy. And not just a YouTube show. When you know, cool heads will prevail. Kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Melanie Little is going live.
Hello again. Hello, my friends. Thanks so much for coming to hang out with me again today. It is still Friday, January 16th, 2026, and I don't know, it's like half gone already. The first month of 2026 and it's half gone. And I'm going to get used to this new setup if it kills me. And it might, although this morning we didn't have any glitching issues. So hopefully, maybe it was the Verizon issue. And are you still mad? Are you still mad about Aaron Spencer? Okay, well, I'm still mad about the Verizon issue. Think about how much business was lost. But hey, no big whoop. You get $20 on your bill. $20 credit on your bill, everybody, if you were affected by that Verizon outage. That was like nationwide. I don't know if it's nationwide, worldwide, I don't know. If I keep glitching, or if I do glitch again today, let me know. But I was freezing the other day, and I think it's because I have Verizon Ethernet. I don't know. If I ever figure out technology, it's going to be a crazy day. It's going to be a crazy day. We already did a badass affirmation this morning. So if you didn't hear the badass affirmation, we do it every time we do a stream, every day. It's from a deck called Affirmations of a Badass. Affirmations for a Badass. And you're all my badasses. And sometimes we all just need a good affirmation for the day. Oh, in Norway, it was a problem too. Hang on for a second while I fix my mic. I don't know. Okay, maybe it'll stay there. Maybe not. Maybe it'll collapse. I don't know. Thank you so very much. Holy crap. CJS Book Corner gifted 20 memberships. Congratulations to the 20 new members. Wow, that is so generous of you. I thank you so much with all of my heart. You're amazing. And to the 20 new members who were so randomly and lovely gifted by CJS Book Corner 9677. Welcome. I think you're going to like it here. What a great way to start it off. Every stream we pull an affirmation for a badass because sometimes you just need an affirmation to get you through the day, right? Like my favorite, which is winners focus on winning, losers focus on winners. That's like one I say every day now. Which one was it from this morning? Do you guys remember? Making mistakes? Was it the making mistakes one? Making mistakes is better than faking perfection. I think that was the one, right? Making mistakes is better than faking perfection. That was the one from this morning. And we'll pull another one for this afternoon. And then I want to share a story with you from somebody in Norfolk County. That's the one, right? Who took the badass affirmation to heart recently. It's a very exciting story. I love it. I think you're going to love it too. And let's pull another one because it's a new stream, new affirmation, right? Oh my goodness, another 20 memberships has just been gifted by Nancy. You guys are too good to each other and to me. Thank you, Nancy S., for gifting another 20. That's 40 new members already today. And you guys are amazing. You're in it for the long haul. You care fiercely about justice, just like I do. And you get outraged, just like I do. And I love it. I love it about you because you really believe in justice. You guys are amazing. Thank you, Nancy, for gifting another 20. That's 40. Here's the rest of the deck. We're running low on this deck. I have another deck ready. It's a little bit different, but when we run out of this deck, we're gonna start on the new deck. And so the one for the evening stream or the afternoon stream, here it is. There's an F word in here, so I'm just gonna say effing because a lot of you are at work, or you have me on your TV in your nail salon or your hair salon, or welcome to the yacht club, or in some other public place. So I'm just gonna say effing, and your children are probably in the room too. All right, you ready? Are you ready for this one, my badasses? Here we go. You did not wake up today to be effing average. All right? You did not wake up today to be effing average. There it is. It's real. It's your badass affirmation for the afternoon and evening because you didn't wake up today to be effing average. I know you didn't. Not you guys. Hell to the gnaw on that. Michael Proctor has surfaced. Michael Proctor has surfaced. And he's telling us some stuff. He's admitting some stuff. And he's denying some stuff. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But let me tell you first about a girl from Norfolk County. I'm just going to call her L because that's the initial for her first name, because I'm sure she doesn't want me to tell you her name because everyone in Norfolk County probably knows everyone else in Norfolk County. But here's what she said. She said, the badass affirmation that you read the other day about do the damn thing was exactly what I needed to hear to help me make this decision to get out of here. She said, thank you for confirming to me the insanity that goes on here in Massachusetts, Norfolk County. We came here many years ago for my husband's work and raised our kids here. It's been tough. I need to get out. Your New York sensibility has legitimized what I knew from day one. This place is awful. Listen, I mean, I guess you're welcome. She said, I'm close to putting an offer in on a house here on Long Island to get my toe back into my hometown. And she said, the badass affirmation you read the other day about do the damn thing was exactly what I needed to hear to help me make this decision to get out of here. I've been a subscriber for a while. Thank you, thank you, thank you. She said, thank you. Take care and you're great. Breath of fresh air. Okay, I'm frozen again. I'm on the Ethernet. So what have I done differently since last time? Nothing. I was here this morning and I wasn't frozen. So let me refresh my browser. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. I'll refresh the browser and see if that works. Hold, please. All right, we'll see if that fixes the problem. Well, I wasn't good. I mean, I refreshed my browser, so I went out and then I came back. I don't know, but you know what had happened was some people say some people say I'm not. If it continues to happen, then I'm just going to do this tomorrow instead because I just can't deal with it. I just can't deal with it today. I don't have the patience. I don't have the patience for it. I have exactly the same setup that I had this morning, and that's what it is. Maybe there's too much. Maybe it's too much internet. Maybe there's too many people on YouTube. I didn't do anything differently. I was here all morning for hours and hours and hours reading documents. I was for hours and hours. And it was fine. It's a high traffic time. I don't know. If it's a StreamYard issue, then they're going to be hearing from me. I'm going to have to call them up and yell at them. Right? Because it was fine this morning. And all we did was read documents. So we're here for it again. We'll see what happens. I mean, if you know what, if it bothers you, the freezing, then just don't watch me. Just listen. You know what I mean? Just listen, because you can do that too. You can just listen, and it'll be audio only. It'd be like you're listening to a podcast on Spotify or something, right? But I like to give you the best viewer experience, and so that is very disconcerting to me to think that StreamYard, based on and it's like $100 a month. Like, it's not cheap. Again, with the freezing. All right. And maybe it's YouTube, maybe whatever it is, but I don't think I have a brand new badass system right now. I have a Mac Studio. It's all set up. I've got more power than I ever had. I was doing it on a laptop, on a 13-inch laptop. So I don't know, whatever. It is what it is. All right. Here's what happened. Michael Proctor has answered the complaint in the Karen Reed versus everyone case. He's answered the complaint. He has a lawyer, and he's back. He's back. And he's admitting and denying all kinds of things. And then we have Howie Carr's column from today from where is it? The Boston Herald, which is pretty badass too. It's pretty badass, and we're here for it. Should I just like take my camera down and just have like should I do like the thing that so many people do, or that I don't even know how to do that, where they just have like an avatar like talking, so it's like they have an avatar talking so you can't even see their picture. I would never do that. I can't do it. I can't do it. All right. Here's the way it works in a civil lawsuit. The plaintiff files a complaint, and then the defendants have usually 30 days to file their answer. In the case of Proctor, he was in contempt because he didn't file an answer, and he also didn't respond to the subpoena for all of his phone download. But this is in the case of Karen Reed versus everybody. This is the civil lawsuit that she filed in Bristol County. And then the House defendants filed a notice of removal to federal court, which they have the right to do, but it's going to be up to a federal court judge as to whether or not the case is going to remain in federal court. Now, remember, this is a case for violation of Karen Reed's civil rights against the House defendants and Proctor and Buchanan and Tully. And Karen Reed's team has indicated that they also intend to sue the Massachusetts State Police and the Canton PD and the town of Canton. Okay. Now, Michael Proctor did not have a lawyer, and they kept giving him extensions, and he finally got a lawyer, and today he has filed his answer in the federal court. And so this is how it works. Let me just pull up the complaint for a moment so that you know what I'm talking about. And this is what we do. As civil litigators, this is what we do. I'm a plaintiff's lawyer, so I would be the one filing the complaint. However, the defense attorney, when they're drafting their answer for their defendant, goes through the complaint paragraph by paragraph, and they do one of three things. They either admit what is stated in the paragraph, they deny what is stated in the paragraph, or they deny the knowledge and information required to even answer it at all. So it's admit, which would be A, deny, which would be D, or DKI, which is deny knowledge and information. But they must go through the complaint paragraph by paragraph and admit what's in the paragraph, or deny what's in the paragraph, or deny the knowledge and information. Or they can say, I admit this part of it, I admit this sentence, but I deny this sentence. Okay? So, picking up what I'm laying down. So when you're reading an answer, it is helpful to have the complaint next to you so that you can compare them. And we would always do when I would get an answer in from a defendant, I would take my complaint and take my red pen, because you know this girl loves her red pen. A box of them right here. I love my red pens, and they have to be flare pens too, by the way. Flare pens only. Oh, Gigi, thank you. Gigi sent me a $100 cash app for my date with Dave Matthews next week in Cancun. You're the greatest. Thank you, Gigi. I love you so much. Take my red pen, and I go through the complaint paragraph by paragraph, and I write in the margin D, A, or DKI, so that I now have a set of what they call marked pleadings. Okay. And marked pleadings come into play at trial. The judge always wants a set of marked pleadings. What has been admitted, what has been denied, and what is I don't know, or it doesn't apply to me, basically. Anything that's admitted in the complaint is something that does not need to be proven at trial. It is something that the defendant is admitting to. And so therefore, the plaintiff doesn't have to prove it. See what I'm saying? Yeah, it's going to be a hot date. My $100 for cocktails for me and Dave. Gigi's the best. So I'm going to keep the complaint up on my screen so that in case we have any questions about what it is that is being denied or admitted, I can look to the complaint. But the thing about StreamYard is, in addition to it sucking the life out of me between yesterday and today, is that it does not give me the ability to put up two documents at the same time and compare them in a side-by-side fashion as if they were in front of me on a desk. And so my teaching abilities for you are not the way that I would like for them to be. But again, they didn't ask me when they started adding all of these dumb features to StreamYard that nobody cares about. And not giving us the features that we really need for the $100 a month that they charge us to have this platform to stream on, because there's no competition. There's no competition. StreamYard is it, unless you know how to use OBS, which I do not know. I don't know. I'm not a techie. And so that is the problem. If I have to call StreamYard later and yell at them, I think it's an Israeli company. I might be calling Israel and screaming into the void, but who knows? I don't know. All right, see how big I can make this for you. It's 25 pages long, which is not surprising because the complaint is something like 39 pages long. And so because Michael Proctor is required to answer each and every allegation and paragraph in the complaint, it's not surprising that it would be so long. So we're not going to read it verbatim. We're going to discuss and we're going to talk about what he's admitting and what he's denying, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, does everyone know where we're going from here? And then we're going to read Howie Carr, and then we are going to talk about whatever else it is that is in Norfolk County that you would like to talk about. Okay? All right, let's do it. Here is the answer and jury demand of the defendant, Michael Proctor. First defense, and this is very common, and so you don't need to this is nothing to freak out about. Michael Proctor's first defense is plaintiff's complaint fails to state a cause of action or a claim, fails to state a claim against the defendant, Michael Proctor, hereinafter Proctor, upon which relief can be granted and therefore must be dismissed. Very common affirmative defense. However, the way I practice law is that the affirmative defenses come after you answer the complaint, but go figure. I don't know who his lawyer is, so I can't really opine yet. And so I'm sure they're going to make a motion to dismiss, and that's it. I don't know how the spelling is yet, because it's not as bad as the judge in Arkansas that we were looking at this morning, man. That spelling was bad. It was bad. No, I won't get somebody on the phone at StreamYard. I'm not surprised. What happened to the art of the phone call? I like calling people and talking on the phone. I don't need to be emailing or live chatting with people ad nauseum. I want to get on the phone. I want to get my issue addressed, and I want to hang up. That's it. It doesn't need to take 3 days or all day. All right. Next, second defense is that Proctor hereby responds to the allegations contained in the plaintiff's complaint, paragraph by paragraph, as follows. Well, that's not a defense, but all right. Again, nobody asked me, so I'm just going to keep my mouth shut for now. Introduction. The allegations contained in this paragraph are introductory in nature and contain legal conclusions, therefore no response is necessary. And we're going to see that a lot. For example, paragraph 1 of the complaint reads as follows. Well, let me just bring this over here and make it smaller. Paragraph 1 of the complaint reads, for 3.5 years, plaintiff Karen Reed was wrongfully accused of homicide and subjected to suspicion, arrest, 2 prosecutions, and public condemnation, all resulting from the gross misconduct of the Massachusetts State Police and those working in tandem with the MSP to shield from liability the party or parties responsible for the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe III. Now, after being acquitted of all charges relating to Mr. O'Keefe's death, Ms. Reed brings this action to recover for and address the actions of those actually involved in Mr. O'Keefe's death and the law enforcement officers who abjectly have failed to ensure that justice was sought and served in the aftermath of January 29th of 2022. So as you can see from the reading of that, the reading of the Reed complaint, that paragraph number 1 is introductory in nature, and so therefore Proctor doesn't need to respond to them. Same for paragraph 2, he alleges, and then paragraph 3, Proctor admits. Proctor admits, it is admitted that Proctor grew up and resides in Canton, Massachusetts, that Brian Albert was a Boston police officer, and that Brian Higgins was an agent with the ATF. As to the remaining allegations, they are denied. And paragraph 3 says, from the beginning, investigate on the complaint. So you have a little context. We're not going to do this for every single paragraph, but just so you're getting the idea of picking up what I'm laying down here. The complaint, paragraph 3 states, from the beginning, investigators from the MSP allowed the House defendants to direct the investigation away from themselves and towards Ms. Reed. The House defendants were a well-connected and close social group with strong ties to law enforcement. The Alberts are a prominent family in Canton, and the investigating police officers knew them well. The lead investigator for MSP, Michael Proctor, grew up in Canton and resides there to this day. So he's admitting, I admit I grew up and reside in Canton. The complaint, paragraph 3, goes on to say he has been and remains close personal friends with the Albert family. Well, he's denying that part of it. House defendant Brian Albert was a longtime Boston Police Department officer, and House defendant Brian Higgins was an agent with the Bureau of ATF. Well, Michael Proctor says, yes, I agree. I admit that I grew up and that I still live in Canton, and that Brian Albert was a Boston police officer because, he's retired because, pension. And that Brian Higgins was an agent with the ATF. Okay. Is he telling us something right here? Is Brian Higgins no longer with the ATF? Is that news to us? Did we know that already? Am I behind on things? Because I thought I was up on all the things and stuff. Why is he saying that in the past tense? You see that there, right? Brian Higgins, that's my cursor on your screen. Please don't smash your TV and send me a bill. It's not a fly. Brian Higgins was an agent with the ATF. It's right there. It's right there. We know Brian Albert is retired, but do we know that Brian Higgins is no longer an agent with the ATF? You tell me. Do you think that's a mistake? Do you think it's a misprint? Is he telling us everything? I don't know. You think he's telling us something here? Mikazi G says, I remember them saying they took him out of the field, but even if they took him out of the field and put him on desk duty, wouldn't he still be an ATF agent? Technically, wouldn't he still be? That's not what this says, and I'm not spreading any rumors. All I'm doing is reading the papers. Brian Higgins was an agent with the ATF. That's all it says. But as far as the remaining allegations, including, but not limited to, the fact that he was close friends with the Alberts, he's denying that part of it. Words matter. Yes, they do. Words matter. Wait, did that just go off the screen? No. Okay. What just happened? What just had happened was so he's denying that they're well connected. He's denying that he has been and remains close personal friends with the Albert family. He's denying that portion of it. Next, the allegations, paragraph 4. The allegations in this paragraph are introductory in nature and therefore no response is required. To the extent that a response is required, it is admitted that Mr. O'Keefe had bruises and lacerations on his face and a deep gash to the back of his head and scratches on his right arm and forearm. denied that there was an unwritten rule of protecting their own. As to the remaining allegations, Proctor is without knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief as to their truth. Remember, I said DKI? That's DKI, denying knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief as to their truth. Paragraph 4 of the complaint says, adhering to the unwritten rule of protecting their own, Proctor and his MSP colleagues intentionally disregarded the obvious and compelling evidence tying the House defendants to Mr. O'Keefe's murder. He says he's denying that there was an unwritten rule of protecting their own, and that the rest of it he's not sure of, but he does know and does agree that Mr. O'Keefe had bruises and lacerations on his face, a deep gash to the back of his head, and scratches on his right arm and forearm. But paragraph 4 of the complaint also says he had bruises and lacerations on his face and a deep gash to the back of the head, suggesting that he was punched and fell backwards, hitting his head on a ridged surface. He also had dog bite wounds and scratches on his right arm and forearm. Equally evident, Mr. O'Keefe did not have a single injury consistent with being struck by a vehicle. He didn't have any broken bones or even a bruise on his legs, feet, arms, shoulders, torso, back, ribs, or anywhere below his neck that a medical examiner would otherwise expect to find on a person hit and killed by a car. And to erase any doubt, the Commonwealth's own medical examiner, the pathologist who conducted the autopsy for the Commonwealth, concluded that Mr. O'Keefe's body showed no signs of a vehicular strike. Proctor's just like, yeah, I don't know about any of that. I don't know about any of that. Proctor, stop it. Proctor, stop it. Some red flags here. Some red flags. This is Drinker Bell. Hold on. Friend of Dog is here and gifted another 10 memberships. Wow, you guys are really lucky. In order to get a free randomly gifted membership from YouTube, you have to be participating in the chat, and YouTube just randomly gifts you one. It has nothing to do with me. I don't get to pick. I don't get to pick who gets it. It's just YouTube random. Thank you, Friend of Dog, for gifting 10 more. That's like already a lot. I don't know, 50. And thanks, Strange Credulity gifted a membership too. You guys are so generous today. You're so generous. Try and save your questions for later because I have so many screens up in front of me and that I'm reading from that I can't really watch the chat right now. So I love you all. I will read all the super chats later, but I want to stay on task for now. Anyway, as to paragraph number 5, to the extent that a response is required, Proctor admits that he sent texts which speak for themselves. Oh, yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. And what is alleged in paragraph 5 of the complaint is that Proctor reported in text messages just hours into the investigation that the House defendants weren't going to get any shit for this because he's a Boston cop too. And that Proctor was determined to make the investigation cut and dry. Well, he's saying he's admitting that he sent text messages which speak for themselves, which to me means that, you know, he wrote all these text messages and he's not saying somebody stole his phone and wrote them. He's denying that he shielded the House defendants by intentionally sidestepping fundamental investigatory procedures. And as to the rest of that paragraph, he's like, yeah, wasn't me. The other text that he admits that he makes that speak for themselves is Karen Reed had zero chance of skating. She's effed. And as we know, in the complaint, it says this pronouncement was a mere 16 hours after Mr. O'Keefe's body was discovered on the Alberts lawn, and Proctor had not even walked into the house. Proctor says, yeah, I don't know whether or not I walked into the house. That's interesting. All right, so he's saying he admits he sent the text. They speak for themselves. He denies that he shielded the House defendants by intentionally sidestepping fundamental investigatory procedures. And as to the rest of it, he's without knowledge of information to form a belief as to their truth. Well, did you go into the house or didn't you? That's interesting. Paragraph 6. Proctor admits that he did not search the house for blood evidence, fingerprints, or DNA evidence. Admitted that O'Keefe was found without a hat, a coat, and a shoe. As to everything else in paragraph 6, it's denied. Well, another allegation in paragraph 6, I wish I could put these side by side for you, but I can't. It says, at Proctor's direction, the house was never processed by a criminalist or even photographed. So he's denying that? No member of the MSP, including Proctor, set foot inside 34 Fairview for nearly a week. He's denying that too. The police did not examine or take evidence from the Albert's German Shepherd that was in the house on January 29th, the dog that had a history of attacking other dogs and people. Because he's denying that too. Paragraph 7 is some more introductory information, and it is denied in its entirety. Paragraph 8. To the extent a response is required, admitted only that Proctor provided information to his sister. Well, here's what else paragraph 8 says. Proctor also secretly communicated with the Alberts on his personal phone, deliberately back-channeling those communications to circumvent his state-issued device and used his sister as a conduit. He's denying that. But I think that's going to be easily proven. Maybe because now they've got his entire phone download. They're getting everything. Because they're getting it in the case of the O'Keefes versus Karen Reed. Remember, we covered that recently. He can deny it. That just means that the plaintiff has to prove it. And the plaintiff here is Karen Reed, and I think she's going to be able to. For instance, on multiple occasions, Proctor disclosed critical and confidential information about the investigation to his sister, who passed that information to her close friend, Julie Albert, Brian Albert's sister-in-law. Julie Albert then passed that same information on to the rest of her family and the House defendants. Proctor says all he's admitting is that he provided information to his sister. Paragraph 10. Proctor admits that he sent text messages to his high school friends, sister, and state police colleagues, which speak for themselves. Well, they sure do speak for themselves. Proctor stated, and this is in paragraph 10 of the plaintiff's complaint, Proctor stated that Ms. Reed is a whack job, C-word, retarded, a nutbag, and a babe with no ass. And again, about the disgusting things he said about her. Heine, I'm just going to say Heine. And that it leaked, etc. They speak for themselves. Of course they do. Sure they do. And the whole world knows now that you're admitting that you wrote them. And also, he reported no nudes so far, and hopefully she kills herself. But they all speak for themselves, right? Mike, Chip, Bear, whatever you're calling yourself these days. Paragraph 11, straight out denial. This is Yuri Buchanan responding with a thumbs up, acknowledging the text message that he said that Karen Reed was the R word, which I'm not going to repeat again. He's like, yeah, those allegations are against others and not me. Same for paragraph 12. Unless I deny. Deny till you die. Deny till you die, Mikey. Paragraph 13. Proctor admits that he was terminated by the Massachusetts State Police. As to the remaining allegations, Proctor is without knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief. 14, denied, denied. And you see, this is very repetitive. That's what answers usually are, very repetitive. Let's just pick through here, if we will. And we will pick through here and pick what Proctor is admitting and other information that is interesting to us because it's 25 pages long. With regard to paragraph 18, under the section parties, it is admitted that Proctor is a former Massachusetts state trooper and that he resides in Canton, Massachusetts. Moving on through the paragraphs entitled parties, he knows nothing about nothing. I know nothing about nothing. I know nothing about nothing. Jurisdiction and venue. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Here we go to section Roman 4, facts common to all claims regarding Mr. O'Keefe's death. Paragraph 28 is admitted. Paragraph 28 of the complaint says, before his death, Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed were dating. Proctor admits that. Paragraph 29, the complaint reads, on the evening of January 28th, 2022, Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed went out for the night. They first went to C.F. McCarthy's in Canton, where they had several drinks. They then went to the Waterfall Bar in Canton. And this is when the snark needs to come in. Chip's attorney is now snarking a bit and says, admitted that on January 28th, 2022, Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed went to C.F. McCarthy's in Canton and then to the Waterfall Bar in Canton. Also admitted that O'Keefe was drinking. Denied that Ms. Reed had several drinks. She had at least 9. At least 9. There's the snark. With regard to the rest of it, I don't know nothing about nothing, he says. Paragraph 30. Admitted that Jennifer McCabe told O'Keefe that he should come to the house. As to the remaining allegations, Proctor's without knowledge as to any of it. Let's see what the rest of it says. There at the Waterfall, they met up with a group of acquaintances, including Brian Albert, his wife, Nicole Albert, Brian's brother, Chris Albert, and his wife, Julie Jennifer McCabe, Nicole's sister and Brian's brother-in-law, Brian's sister-in-law, her husband, Matt McCabe, Brian Higgins. The group of acquaintances had several drinks and planned to continue the party back at the Alberts' home. House defendant told Jennifer McCabe, John O'Keefe, that he should come to the house. Well, the only thing that he's admitting is that Jennifer McCabe told O'Keefe he should come to the house. Well, you interviewed all of these people. Why are you only admitting what Jennifer McCabe did? Interesting. No big red flags going off yet. Paragraph 31. Admitted that Brian Albert and Mr. O'Keefe were Boston police officers and that Mr. Higgins was an ATF officer. There it is again. He was an ATF officer. Was. As in the past. Is he telling us something that we didn't know? I don't know. Is it a typo by the attorney? I don't know. But that's the second time. Is it a scrivener's error? We know Michael Proctor is famous for scrivener's error, but he's got an attorney this time. Admitted that Kevin Albert and Proctor had a professional relationship. Well, paragraph 31 alleges that Kevin Albert had a professional and social relationship with Michael Proctor. And Proctor just says, I'm admitting that I had a professional relationship with Kevin Albert. So professional that they went out to cover a cold case on the Cape after the murder of John O'Keefe. Sometime, I think it was in the summer. So professional that Kevin Albert lost his badge and gun. Dude, where's my gun? Dude, have you seen my gun? Dude. Proctor's like, no, but dude, I found your badge like in the cup holder. Kevin Albert's like, dude, I'm still so hammered, or something such as like that. Or maybe I'm hungover. It was a rough night. Could you drop my badge off in my mailbox? But it was just professional. Moving through the paragraphs. DKI, denied. 34 is denied. Let's see what he's specifically denying. Paragraph 34 of the complaint reads, at some point after entering the house/garage, Mr. O'Keefe was involved in a physical altercation either inside the house or garage. During that altercation, the Alberts German Shepherd attacked him, and Mr. O'Keefe sustained multiple dog bites and scratches on his right arm. He also suffered an incapacitating contrecoup wound on the back of his head. Mr. O'Keefe's head wound was caused by falling backward and striking a ridged surface. The Alberts garage contains such surfaces. By contrast, the head wound could not have been caused by a vehicle strike or falling backward onto a flat, cold lawn like the Alberts. Well, he just denied that flat out. 35. Anything against Proctor is denied. 36, denied. 37, denied, flat out. Let's see, 37. 37 says, Mr. O'Keefe was either dead when the House defendants left him on the Alberts lawn or he died shortly thereafter. Denied. No way, because we're all on the same side now, right? We're all in on the same joke, right? 38, DKI. You can do this yourself too at home. You can pull up the complaint on your computer and you can mark your pleadings and you can go through each and every paragraph and see what Proctor admits and Proctor denies. And here we go. And this is the 39, 40, 41. I don't know. I don't have any information about that. Investigation begins, which takes us to paragraph 43. All he's admitting is that Canton PD were the first on the scene. As to the rest of it, I don't know. Here's what it says in paragraph 43. The Canton PD were the first on the scene shortly after 6 a.m. At the time, there was no evidence that Mr. O'Keefe had been hit by a vehicle. In fact, the evidence suggested just the opposite. His body did not show signs of trauma, commonly associated with being struck by a car. There were no bone fractures or trauma to his lower body, his torso, or any other part of his body, as investigators would expect from a vehicle strike. Well, he's not much of an investigator, is he? Rather, Mr. O'Keefe's injuries were consistent with being physically assaulted to the face and head and attacked by a dog. For good reason, the ranking CPD officers on the scene, Sergeant Michael Lank, the ranking Canton PD officer on the scene, Michael Lank, opined on a telephone call captured on dash cam that Mr. O'Keefe looked like he had been in a fight. Proctor's like, yeah, all I can say is that I admit that they were the first ones there, but as to the rest of it, I don't know nothing about nothing. Same with paragraphs 44, 45, 46. Except 46, he adds a little something new. 46, he says, I don't know anything about this, except I call upon the plaintiff to prove them. That's paragraph 46. That's a new little phrase that they're throwing in. Let's see if it even applies to Proctor. 46 of the complaint reads, Sergeant Lank was a longtime friend of the Alberts and the first law enforcement officer to enter the house. He spoke to the Alberts and the McCabe's. Pursuant to their plan, the Alberts and the McCabe's told Sergeant Lank that Mr. O'Keefe never entered the Alberts' house the night before. The Alberts and the McCabe's statements were false. Mr. O'Keefe arrived at and entered the house or garage where he was assaulted, attacked by the Alberts dog, and suffered a fatal injury to the back of his head. Proctor's like, yeah, I don't know about that, but I'm calling upon you to prove it. Will they be able to? Will they be able to? We'll see. There was never any evidence that he got hit by a car. Little Cupcake is reminding us, and we know, except for the taillight fairy came around maybe and sprinkled some taillight pieces around there, as some might opine. Holly and Johnny, thanks for being here for 2 months. It's Happy Friday. We have Verizon in Wisconsin, and for once, we weren't a part of the blackout. Thank you for all you do. Wow, really? You guys dodged a bullet. It was brutal. It's still, the after effects are still happening. The Proctor Files is here and says, yay, a second dose of Melanie. Great Friday night here in Portsmouth, England. I love you with all of my heart. I love you even more with all of my heart. Thank you so much for being here for 10 months. Love your username. Karen DePasquale says, I love you with all of my heart. You make my day, Melanie. Thank you. Thank you so much. If you're wondering where that comes from, I love you with all of my heart. If I don't see you soon, am I going to die? It is Clemenza's meatball scene from The Godfather, which is one of my favorite movies. Michael, tell the pretty girl you love her. Thank you, Karen, for being here for 6 months. And Jessica says, happy for a cozy afternoon with you on a cold Friday. I'm so happy that you're here. And Vicky, thank you for your 20. Vicky Andrews says, thank you. I appreciate your knowledge and information. I do believe any and all evidence before making a decision. I do believe in any and all evidence before making a decision. Be safe and classy, my friend. Thank you. Same to you. Thank you for your 20. Not a House defendant is here and says, Proctor's calling himself unemployed now. Well, you could be. Oh, Betsy's here. Hi, Bets. Thanks, Bets. Thanks, Bets. Your Venmo earlier, too, says she gifted 5 memberships because she thinks we need to get to maybe 100 new members today. Thank you, Betsy. You're so generous all the time. And the Kiwi Crypt Keeper says in paragraph 31, everyone is either an officer, but Higgins is referred to as Mr. or was. Dun, dun, dun. In my opinion, he's been given the let's keep this quiet boot. Interesting. Let's go back to 31 where it says Brian Albert and Mr. O'Keefe were Boston police. Oh, Mr. Higgins, right. Mr. Higgins was an ATF officer. Is he trying to tell us something? It does. It says Mr. You're right. I didn't pick up on that. I picked on the was, but not the Mr. Because then when he gets to talking about his relationship with Kevin Albert, let's say, what paragraph was that? Because where are we? 48? Admitted that Kevin Albert and Proctor had a professional relationship. Well, he's not saying Mr. He's not saying detective. He's not saying anything. I'm not sure what his rank is, actually. And here we get into paragraph 49, which starts talking a lot more about Proctor because it's entitled Proctor Leads MSP Investigation Despite Conflicts. Footnote 1, which tells us a lot. Thanks again, Kiwi Crypt Keeper. And thank you, Suze, who says the problem is Amazon Web Services, and it's affecting a ton of applications and programs. It's driving us nuts at work. Thank you. So it's not me, right? It's not me. It's them. Thank you. Yeah, and that's where they do a lot of their hosting, a lot of these websites, and these StreamYard is a web-based platform, and so it screws us all. And I guess if the traffic is high at a certain time, that is the reason. And so thank you for that. So it's not me. It's not that I plugged things into the wrong thing, right? Oh, thank you, Jeff. Thanks for verifying that it's not me. Because this morning we were good, right? Holy memberships, says Debbie. Holy memberships. It's all going to come out. It's all going to come out. Can't wait for it, says Wendy. And oh, Sweetie No says, oh, it's totally them. It'll take days to get back to normal. I know. So I guess maybe we got to stream in the middle of the night. Who wants to wake up at 3 a.m. to finish this? Oh, and Runkle had problems too. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. Because everyone else was telling me yesterday, it's not happening on anybody else's channel but yours. But maybe that's because you were watching me at the time. So you weren't watching other people at the same time. Maybe that's what it was. And Makazi G says, first rule in chat, it's never you, Mel. I love that. Makazi G, are you going to respond to Carney's papers or what? What are we going to, you going to respond? Are we going to have those papers to look at this weekend or what? It's Friday. I'm sure you're going to drop them maybe. Or maybe you're just going to blow the deadline off like you did last time because the rules don't really apply to you, right, Kazi? Of course. So here we get into the meat of the issue regarding Proctor himself, and that is paragraph 49. Oh, wait, but we were going to footnote 1, which says, to the extent Proctor does not expressly admit the allegations contained in plaintiff's complaint, the allegations are denied, including the paragraph headings, prefatory statements contained therein. Fair enough. If I don't admit it, it's denied. Paragraph 49, admitted that Proctor was assigned as the case officer and that Buchanan and Tully were supervisors at the Norfolk County State Police Detective Unit. Proctor denies that he engaged in misconduct. As to the remaining allegations, they are denied. Well, Paragraph 49 of the complaint says Michael Proctor was assigned as the case officer and had primary responsibility for the MSP investigation of Mr. O'Keefe's death. Well, he admits that. Sergeant Yuri Buchanan was Proctor's direct supervisor. Well, he admits that they were supervisors. Lieutenant Brian Tully was the supervisory officer in the Norfolk County State Police Detective Unit and thus supervised both Buchanan and Proctor. Well, he's saying they are supervisors. And then it says here, in their roles, Buchanan and Tully both knew at all times exactly the extent of Proctor's misconduct in investigating Mr. O'Keefe's death as described below. He's like, yeah, no, I deny that because they didn't know what I was doing. Which is kind of funny if you think about it. Funny the way it is, if you think about it. Do think in song lyrics. Look, see, even my bracelet, even what my bracelet says. Well, I don't know if you could read it, but it says so damn lucky. So damn lucky. Paragraph 50 admitted that Proctor grew up and resides in Canton. Admitted that Proctor's sister was a friend of Julie Albert's. Oh, are they no longer friends? Are Courtney and Julie Albert no longer friends? Can anyone confirm or deny? Look, Proctor's sister was a friend of Julie Albert's. Admitted that Proctor and Julie Albert had each other's personal cell numbers. Yep, they did. They did. They had each other's personal cell numbers because wasn't Michael Proctor going to get Julie Albert to babysit his kids or something? Was it Michael Proctor and Julie Albert? I don't know. I may be conflating all the trials and all the cases, and that is totally possible. It is totally possible. The House of Cards is falling down. That's why I have the thumbnail that I do today, because the House of Cards is coming to it's crumbling. It's crumbling. Friends in low places. I think that we have that on the playlist. I got to put the Can't Read playlist again, the Spotify playlist below. Are they using the wrong tense to throw us off? Well, listen, lawyers choose their words very carefully, okay? They just do. And what they don't say is almost as important as what they do say, and we know that from all the pressers that we've watched. And resisting arrest says, oh my, they must have broken up. Sad news. And Zoe says, Courtney likely no longer needs Julie for childcare, so no need to be friends anymore. That is right. That is right. That he was going to, Julie Albert is the babysitter. Right, right. We shouldn't have to guess. We shouldn't have to guess what they mean, because paragraph 50 of the complaint says, from the beginning, Proctor never should have been assigned as an investigating officer, let alone the lead investigator. He grew up and resides in Canton, is a good friend of the Alberts, and had known the family for years. Proctor and Julie Albert, Brian Albert's sister-in-law, had each other's personal cell phone numbers. In fact, just days before Mr. O'Keefe's death, I should have just continued, Proctor communicated with Julie Albert about babysitting Proctor's minor child. Proctor's sister, Courtney, was also a close friend of Julie. In fact, Proctor's own mother referred to the Alberts as the Proctor's second family. The existence of these relationships was intentionally suppressed by Proctor and other members of the MSP, including Buchanan and Tully, in an effort to ensure that the House defendants were protected and that Ms. Reed's right to a fair investigation and trial were undermined. I mean, this is so much more is going to be exposed. So much more is going to be exposed. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. Proctor says Proctor's sister was a friend of Julie Albert's, and we had each other's cell phone numbers, and it's denied that Proctor was a good friend of the Alberts. I don't know. Would you have some stranger babysit your child? I don't think I would ever. Denied that Proctor intentionally suppressed the existence of any relationships. Okay. Denied that Proctor protected any of the House defendants, and denied the plaintiff's right to a fair investigation and trial were undermined. As to the remaining allegations, Proctor is without knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief. Moving on to the next section, which reads, Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully engaged in a corrupt and biased investigation by not investigating inside the house and interviewing house defendants as friends rather than suspects. Well, Proctor says, paragraph 51, I don't really know anything about that. Paragraph 51 says, in the complaint, Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, and the MSP never searched for DNA evidence inside the house, never looked for ridge surfaces that could have caused the gash on the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head, never inspected the house defendants' bodies for indication of bruises or cuts that resulted from an altercation, and did not search the house defendants' cell phones. And he's like, I don't know. I don't know if we did or not. This allowed potential evidence to be destroyed, disposed of, removed, or simply become unrecoverable. Paragraph 52 of the complaint reads, Proctor's, Buchanan's, and Tully's interviews of the house defendants were also outside of normal protocol. Proctor denies that part. They were all interviewed either at their home, their family member's home, their lawyer's home, in the case of Brian Higgins, their lawyer's office, in the case of Brian Jr. and Caitlin Albert, their place of employment, or over the phone. These interviews were each untimely, unrecorded, and fundamentally designed to protect the house defendants, and the house defendants took full advantage of it. Well, Proctor says, I'm denying that the interviews were outside of proper protocol, but I admit only that the interviews with the house defendants were not recorded. As to the rest of it, I don't really know. Weird. Is it normal protocol to record interviews? Well, we know they did it in cases before this and in cases after this. Brian Walsh, they recorded every single interview with Brian Walsh because we listened to the recordings. They interviewed Harry Turk in the hospital. And Katie McLean's death was before John O'Keefe's, right? Because I seem to remember it was during the panty. It was like maybe 2021 or 2020. And they recorded his interview in the hospital even. This is going to be a whole episode. Moving on, 53, deny. 54, DKI. 55, DKI or deny. 56, Proctor denies that he engaged in an unlawful investigation, that he was biased and or corrupt. As to the remaining allegations, I don't know. Wait, that's funny. Hold on a second. He calls them the house defendants. Yeah, you're right. He did, right? Interviews of the house defendants. Well, that's how they're referred in the complaint. They're referred to as the house defendants in the complaint. But yes, he adopted that language. His attorney did. In paragraph 52 here. You can't make this up. This is going to be a whole episode. I mean, you couldn't even tell this story in one season. That's why the Lifetime movie was a bit disappointing, was because there's so much more to the story than you can tell in like an 80-minute movie, right? So much more to the story. Paragraph 57 says, in Proctor's answer, Proctor admits that he interviewed the McCabe's and Brian Albert on January 29th at the McCabe's home in Canton. Proctor admits that he interviewed Nicole Albert, Brian Higgins, Chris Albert, and Julie Albert. As to the remaining allegations, Proctor is without knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief as to their truth. Paragraph 57 of the complaint also alleges that the McCabe's and Brian Albert, again, falsely stated that Mr. O'Keefe never entered the Alberts' home. Buchanan and Proctor did not interview Nicole Albert and Brian Higgins until February 3rd of 2022. That was after Karen was arraigned, by the way. And did not interview Chris and Julie Albert until February 10th. Nearly 2 weeks after Mr. O'Keefe's death and more than a week after Ms. Reed was arrested and charged. Because, you know, it was all about Jennifer McCabe. It's all about Jennifer McCabe because the first part of that paragraph says Proctor and Buchanan initially interviewed the McCabe's and Brian Albert on January 29th at the McCabe's home in Canton. So based on these statements of Jennifer McCabe, Brian Albert, who's a Boston police officer, and Matthew McCabe, and if you have misophonia, please earmuffs. EMT, Katie McLaughlin, Karen Reed was indicted. That's it. Based on that evidence only. Right? Was there anybody else? Because the rest of them weren't interviewed until after that arraignment on February 2nd of 2022. He's playing the I don't know game, but it's possible. You know, it's standard. I'm interested more in what he's telling us than what he's denying. Paragraph 58 denied that Proctor failed to conduct a meaningful investigation. Oh, it was so meaningful. Admitted that Proctor interviewed Higgins and that Higgins presented some text between himself and the plaintiff. Further admitted that Higgins reported that he and Reed had kissed. As to the remaining allegations, I don't know. Paragraph 58 says in the complaint, Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully likewise failed to conduct a meaningful investigation into Higgins' involvement. When Proctor and Buchanan interviewed Higgins on February 3rd, Higgins presented the troopers with a select set of self-curated texts between himself and Ms. Reed. They learned that Higgins and Ms. Reed had been exchanging flirtatious texts and that Higgins reported at least one instance in which Ms. Reed and Higgins had kissed while at Mr. O'Keefe's home mere weeks before his death. Proctor's like, yeah, I'm not going to admit that I failed. I'm not going to admit that I failed to conduct. It's like a double negative. I'm not going to admit that I failed to conduct a meaningful investigation. But yeah, I did interview Higgins, and he gave me some text messages, and Higgins said that they did kiss, but he didn't investigate Higgins. He didn't investigate Higgins because we would know about it. He didn't. And Higgins went to the FBI and met with his friend, Matt Kelch. And Matt Kelch taught him how to use the FBI kiosk to cherry pick the text messages that he only wanted from his phone. And then he printed them up on photocopy paper, and just printed them up and brought him with him to his interview, didn't offer up his phone, just printed up the cherry picked messages before he destroyed his phone on a military base and cracked his SIM card in half and put it in different dumpsters. And he was like, trust me, bro. And they were like, yeah, no problem, bro. No problem, bro. But now he's Mr. Higgins again. So maybe there's something we don't know. Cupcakes of Justice gifted 5 memberships. You are so amazing. Thank you so much. Single mama to 4 crazies says, I graduated from law school with this attorney. I didn't know him, but it's a fun fact. Yeah, that is a fun fact. I'll allow it. Thanks for your 5. And Irish Wolfhound Mama says, it's nearly 10:30 p.m. over here in Ireland. Just joined as I was watching The Traitors, but I will never be a traitor. I love you, Melanie. Oh, thank you. It's like the internet out there is like the wild, wild, wild. It's like a real life game of Survivor. It's like who's got alliances with who and whose torch should we put out this week and who are we going to vote off the island? And I haven't watched Traitors yet, but I heard it's really good. And so I might. Tell me if I should. But it's wild what's going on out there. And so thank you for that. I appreciate your loyalty. Thank you. Irish Wolfhound Mama, you're the greatest. And all of my Irish viewers, I love you so much. And Kazi's the Thesaurus gifted a membership too. You guys are all in the gifting mood tonight. Thank you so much. Barry Adams says, so Mel, how does Proctor deny number 34 rather than DKI number 34? Does that mean he knows for certain exactly what happened at 34 Fairview Road? Number 34 is 34 Fairview. Well, let's see. Just remind me if I forget that we're on paragraph 59. So 34 is just flat out denied. Did we already cover this? I think we did. And that's weird because, right, 34 Fairview, 34. Right, that was the part that we just went over about John going into the garage or the house, getting into a physical altercation, German Shepherd attack, multiple dogs. He's like, straight out no. You know why? You know why he's denying that? Because it's going to be his story. His story is going to be This was a car accident. That's how I investigated it. That was my determination. And that's my story. And I'm sticking to it. Right? He can't possibly ever admit or even DKI that because it's got to be his story. His story has to remain the same. I investigated this meaningfully and I did a full and thorough, full-throated investigation. And I found that this was a motor vehicle versus pedestrian accident intentionally caused by Karen Reed. And of course, that's why we charged her with murder. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your super chat, Barry. Hope that answered your question. Okay, moving on. Sorry if this is making you dizzy. Paragraph 59, Proctor admits that he did not do further interviews with Higgins, denied that Proctor had any video. As to the remaining allegations, Proctor's without knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief as to their truth. Well, paragraph 59 of the complaint says, this is like a roller coaster the way I'm flipping back and forth behind here, flipping and make it dizzy if you were seeing what I'm seeing. Paragraph 59 of the complaint. Rather than pursuing Higgins as a possible suspect, Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully neglected to investigate the matter further. They never interviewed Higgins again, even after surveillance video revealed Higgins was suspiciously hiding his face in the halls and the parking lot of Canton PD at 1:30 a.m. on January 29th. The video contradicts Higgins' statement about his actions that night. However, not only did Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, and MSP not investigate what Higgins was doing or what was in the bag, but they went so far as to hide this video from Karen Reed and her criminal defense attorneys for years. Reed's defense did not receive these videos until after Reed stood trial for the first time. Wait a second. Proctor admits that he did not do further interviews with Higgins, denied that Proctor hid any video. As to the remaining allegations, I don't know. Well, Judge Cannoni blamed him for hiding the video. She blamed him. They pinned it all on him without an evidentiary hearing. And how did they even know that? Proctor says he didn't do it. He didn't do it. And Proctor, as you know, quit. He quit his bid to get his job back. And yet he's still going to deny till he dies. He's denying till he dies that he hid any video. And he says, I didn't do any further interview with Higgins, but he's not denying that he pursued him as a suspect yet. Thanks, Sherry. Aloha. Aloha. Very exciting. Aloha. So that's interesting because paragraph 59 of the complaint is full-throated. It goes on to say, and even after the separate law enforcement agency's investigation revealed late night phone calls between Brian Albert and Brian Higgins, MSP failed to pursue either witness further or seek a full forensic extraction of Higgins' phone or even a simple call log from his cellular provider. Proctor's like, I don't know. '61. So paragraph 60 talks about Higgins and Brian Albert destroying their cell phones. And he's like, yeah, that doesn't apply to me. But for those of you who don't know, here's what I really want to know. All right. If you are here with us tonight, welcome for the first time. If you are here with us tonight, maybe not for the first time, but if you were here with us tonight for the coverage of the Karen Reed debacle, and the reason that you're here is because you saw the Lifetime movie, put a 1 in the chat. Because so many people, when we talked about the Lifetime movie, we did a debrief of it. So many people thought the Lifetime movie was so bad and it was so terrible. And I said, listen, if it brings curiosity to some more people who didn't know anything about the Karen Reed case and they want to learn more about it, look, here they are. They're not afraid to participate. Mrs. Alabama is here. Picolette is here. These guys are coming over from the Lifetime movie to learn more about the corruption. Some of your names I recognize, so I don't know. There's a healthy amount in the chat. Coming over from the Lifetime movie to learn more about it. Right? So even if the movie wasn't 100% accurate and there were lots of things missing, if it creates curiosity to people who maybe never heard of the Karen Read case to say, oh my gosh, what is going on there? This thing is still going on. Welcome to all of you, because it is even wilder than you could even imagine. That Lifetime movie didn't even scratch the surface of the horrors and the corruption that went on in the Karen Read case. John O'Keefe was not hit by a car. A car did not hit John O'Keefe. The Lifetime movie did not make that clear because, legal departments. Something else happened to John O'Keefe. He was murdered in a different way. In fact, it has been brought out during testimony that some people said when they first saw the body of John O'Keefe that it looked like he went 10 rounds with Mike Tyson. Okay. There were no injuries below the neck to the body of John O'Keefe other than what looked like, and I can't show the picture because YouTube hates it, a massive dog attack to John O'Keefe's right arm. And anybody who has ever been attacked by a dog knows that when a dog comes for you, oftentimes you would put up your right arm to protect your face. I got so mad about it all the way back 2 years ago. It's exactly 2 years since I've been covering this case. Hundreds of hours of coverage I have on this case, hundreds. And before I even started covering it on my channel, I went on Court TV. I was called because I met Vinnie Politan doing a show with Mike King of Profiling Evil, who is going to come on the channel soon because Mike King is doing, I think he wrote a new book or he's doing a podcast or something. But anyway, he's coming on. And I went on to Mike King's show and Vinnie Politan was there and we were talking about other shows and other cases. And I said, Vinnie, if you ever want to talk about Karen Read, call me. And 2 days later, I got a call from his producer to go on the show. And we hadn't even talked about it on the channel yet. Hold, please. And it is because of a crazy talking head by the name of Jennifer Koffendorfer, whose name we do not mention on this channel. I will only say it once. We call her JC, or we call her the name, not the person who may not be named. It is because of her that I started really screaming about Karen Read. And then, because she tried to make me look like an idiot on Court TV when I said, well, clearly it looks like a dog attack to John O'Keefe's right arm. Like, what are we doing here? I've been handling civil litigation for 30 years. I've handled thousands of car accidents and pedestrian versus motor vehicle accidents. And that man was not hit by a car because he had no bumper marks on his legs, no injuries below the neck. It's obvious. She tried to make me look like such an idiot. Do you remember? You remember because we played it on the channel to the point where I went out and found, thank you to Team Brittany, an expert on dog bites. His name is Garrett Wing, and he's got a YouTube channel, and he's the expert on dog bites. And he came on the channel, and he didn't even know what I was going to ask him. And I showed him a picture, and I said, what do you think this is? Showed him a picture of John O'Keefe's right arm. No, obviously, dog bites. I said, German Shepherd? He said, well, yeah, let me show you some examples. He had a prosthetic arm. He brought the prosthetic arm. He showed us the prosthetic arm and exactly why and how those were dog bites. And I haven't shut up since. And I think that is also the reason that Olivia got involved in this case, right? Same person. The reason that Mark Betterow got involved in this case is because there was another crazy person, another attorney by the name of Wendy Murphy, who was tweeting out some nonsense. And Mark Betterow's like, are we in the, is this real life? This is the upside down, inside out Narnia of Norfolk County, Massachusetts. And it just, this is like no other, it's not the way it works in real court, in real places. It just doesn't happen like this. But thanks to the trolls for getting us involved, because we've been very loud about it since. Garrett Wing is so good. That show was really good. Boy, did they hate that show. And then he wound up being hired by the defense team to testify at trial too, but they didn't need him in the end. So nobody screams louder than a woman like me, who you try and make seem not so smart on Court TV, and who's laughing now. And she still continues to say nasty things about me on Court TV. Thank you, Scott. Still to this day. As recently as, like, I don't know, last week somebody sent me something that she was squawking about, talking about me on the cesspool of Twitter. And I'm always going to call it Twitter. Don't be mad at me. Still. Moving on. We're on paragraph 61. So for those of you who don't know, paragraph 60, which Proctor's like, yeah, it doesn't refer to me, but paragraph 60 says, Brian Higgins went so far to get rid of his phone as to drive to a military base on Cape Cod, remove the SIM card from his phone, cut the SIM card with scissors he brought with him, and destroy and dispose of the phone and card separately in 2 dumpsters, and then he drove back home. And that was right after the defense team in Karen Reed's criminal case was making it known that they wanted to get Higgins' phone and make a forensic image of it. And Brian Albert did the same. Got rid of his phone, got a new number. Oops. Paragraph 61. The complaint says not only did Proctor fail to probe his friend's stories, he coordinated with them through his sister. Proctor spoke to Courtney multiple times a day and knew she was in close contact with and providing information to Julie Albert. Julie and Courtney called each other many times between February 1st and 2nd. Remember, that was the day between Karen's arrest on February 1st, her arraignment on February 2nd. That was in Stoughton? Was that in Stoughton District Court? I'm getting all my cases conflated, but I think it was Stoughton. So Julie and Courtney, Proctor's sister, and Julie Albert were communicating several times between the date of the arrest and the date of the arraignment, and at least 67 times between February 1st and September 6, 2022. And to that, Proctor says, paragraph 61, admitted that Proctor spoke to his sister Courtney, denied that Proctor failed to probe any stories, and denied that he coordinated stories through his sister. That's the remaining allegations. I don't know. 62. Complaint says, for example, as he prepared to question Chris and Julie Albert on February 10th, Proctor told his sister Courtney that the interview was not a big deal. Courtney told Proctor that Julie Albert had been nervous and wanted to give him a thank you gift after the interview. To avoid scrutiny, Proctor instructed Courtney to tell Julie to give the gift to his wife, Elizabeth Proctor. To that, Proctor says, admitted that Courtney told Proctor that Julie Albert wanted to give Proctor a thank you gift, which was never offered or accepted. Admitted that Proctor told Courtney to tell Julie Albert to give Proctor's wife a gift, which was never offered or accepted. As to the remaining allegations, Proctor is without knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief as to their truth. Some people construed that in a different way. Julie Albert is the mother of Colin Albert. I thought those text messages occurred, and Olivia, if you're here or if anyone else is here that knows for sure, don't guess. The date of the text message between Courtney and Julie, tell your brother when all this is over, I want to get him a thank you gift. I thought it was around the same day of Karen Reed's arrest, like February 1st or 2nd. Right? And what is she thanking him for? I don't think she was thanking him for the interview, because the interview was not until the 10th. Oh, did Microdots put out a new video? I can't wait. I'll send you over there after this. I thought it was February 2nd or February 1st. Thank you, Scott McGinnis. Says Melanie cuts through the tabloid BS of true crime. Why she is fantastic and why she is and was great on garbage like Clark TV. Well, I read the papers, Scott. I'm reading the papers, right? That's all. It was the day she was arraigned, says Makazi G. Right. The 2nd, 2/2/22, right? I mean, let's use our context clues. I want to give your brother a thank you gift when this is all. Why? Why give him a thank you gift? Paragraph 63 says the complaint says Proctor shared investigatory details with Courtney before they were public. In the same instance referenced above, when his sister informed him that Julie Albert had been so nervous before the interview, instead of investigating further, he shrugged it off, laughed, and asked why. But Proctor knew exactly why Julie Albert was nervous. He sought to reassure her by telling Courtney that it was fine, just a quick convo. And then after the interview, Proctor spoke to Julie on his personal cell phone in an unreported conversation. Proctor never treated the Alberts as witnesses in a murder investigation. He treated them like the family friends that they were. Well, to that, Proctor says, denied that Proctor treated the Alberts like family friends, admitted that Proctor shared some details with Courtney. As to the rest of it, I don't know. 64, 65. Other defendants or deny, other defendants or deny. In paragraph 66, straight up denial. Paragraph 66 reads, the McCabe's, Alberts, and Higgins all told the same false story to investigators in their interviews, and Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully accepted their coordinated statements without making efforts to corroborate their stories. He's like, no, not true. Denied. The next section is entitled, rather than investigate their friends and brethren, Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully, and MSP target Karen Reed. "67 complaint paragraph says, instead of taking the routine, objective, and necessary steps of investigating the McCabe's, Higgins, and the Alberts, Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully focused exclusively on Ms. Reed as a suspect from the start of the investigation, despite substantial evidence exonerating her and implicating others, just as the House defendants intended." And to that, Proctor says, denied that there was substantial evidence exonerating the plaintiff and implicating others. As to the remaining allegations, I don't know. 68. Proctor admits that Ms. Reed's cell phone and her SUV were seized on January 29th. As to the rest, it's denied. 68 says, Proctor seized Ms. Reed's cell phone and her SUV within 30 minutes of interviewing her on January 29th. He arrested her 72 hours later before reviewing any surveillance from the bars or ring camera footage, before interviewing exculpatory witnesses, and before the medical examiner's official conclusion that the manner of death could not be determined, and that there were no injuries to Mr. O'Keefe's body consistent with a vehicle strike. If you're new here or to this case, or here from the Lifetime movie, you do not know that the medical examiner employed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it's a Commonwealth, not a state, the manner of death on John O'Keefe's death certificate is undetermined and has remained such. To this day, it has never been changed. There are five choices for manner of death on a death certificate, and they are, let's see if I can remember them now, natural, accidental, homicide, suicide, or undetermined. And homicide means death at the hands of another, or in the case of some Massachusetts medical examiners, it is if you're having a verbal argument with someone and they drop dead of a heart attack, you can be charged. It can be determined a homicide, because we watched that crazy case of Penny McGee, and you should watch that case because it was also in front of Judge Cannoni. And if you only watch the Lifetime movie, you would think that her wig is atrocious, but I don't even know if she wears a wig in real life. But that actress really nailed it with that wig. I will say that. Undetermined. It's not homicide and boy, did they fight to keep that out of the trial. The Commonwealth did, because even the medical examiner couldn't say that it was a homicide. Penny McGee case was amazing. Proctor says, yeah, I did take her phone and her car. They were seized, not I took them on January 20th, but as the rest of it, it's denied. 69, paragraph 69 on the complaint says, much to Proctor's surprise, through the separate law enforcement agency's investigation, his contemporaneous text messages were discovered. Among them, Proctor texted with his high school friends on the evening of January 29th, the day he began his investigation. He told them, his high school friends, that the MSP had already determined that the Alberts were not going to receive any scrutiny about Mr. O'Keefe's death, even though the MSP had not at that point visited the crime scene or been inside the Alberts' home, and had performed only a cursory interview of the McCabe's and Brian Albert. To that, Proctor says, admitted that Proctor texted his high school friends on the evening of January 29th, the day he began his investigation, denied that the MSP had not visited the crime scene. Well, some people on the CERT team went there, but he didn't as the lead investigator, he says. denied that only cursory interviews of the McCabe's and Brian Albert had taken place. Oh, are you calling those really thorough interviews, sir? As to the remaining allegations, Proctor is without knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief as to their truth. You can't make this up. You can't. Paragraph 70, in case you're confused, yes, you're being gaslit, but you're not wrong in thinking that how could a lead investigator who is a law enforcement officer sworn to uphold, the laws of this country and state or Commonwealth of Massachusetts and be unbiased, how could he possibly be texting his friends about a homicide investigation that he's investigating? Is that allowed? The answer is no. No, it's not. But he doesn't care because there's never been any ramifications for his behavior. Paragraph 70, Proctor told his friends that Mr. O'Keefe had been hit by a car and had not been in a fight, despite the fact that Mr. O'Keefe had suffered no injuries consistent with a vehicle strike, but he did have injuries consistent with a fight and a dog attack. Proctor rejected a friend's belief that Brian Albert, the homeowner of the property where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found, would receive some shit. Instead, agreeing with another friend's assumption that you guys, the MSP, are out to make it cut and dry since it involves cops. Proctor revealed that he had already decided he was going to put serious charges, that's in quotes, so I'm going to put serious charges on Ms. Reed, that she was effed and that there was zero chance she skates. From the outset, Proctor was determined to pin it on the girl. Well, Proctor says to that, paragraph 70, admitted that Proctor told his friends that O'Keefe had been hit by a car. Remember, I think he said she waffled him. Denied that from the outset, Proctor was determined to pin it on the girl. It wasn't. It was only a few hours after his body was discovered. That's the remaining allegations. Proctor doesn't know nothing about nothing. Paragraph 71 of the complaint says Proctor's supervisors were aware of his bias and conflicted relationships in this investigation. They didn't have to guess. Proctor told them. He told them he knew the Alberts. Text messages from Proctor to Buchanan and other MSP troopers show Proctor had decided to focus suspicion on Ms. Reed to the exclusion of everyone else. He told the troopers that Ms. Reed was the R word that I don't like to use, and that he was searching her phone for nudes of her. In the text chain, Sergeant Buchanan liked, he said it was just acknowledged, but, thumbs up, Proctor's text describing Ms. Reed as the R word. Buchanan received Proctor's text and never reprimanded Proctor or addressed his improper bias and conduct. And yes, he also was fired from the Massachusetts. This is me now talking to you. Proctor was terminated from the Massachusetts State Police for this behavior, and also the dude where's my gun and badge behavior, and driving under the influence in a car by squad car or police vehicle and stuff like that. So he actually was fired for these things. And here we are. But despite that, Proctor denies that he was biased and had conflicted relationships with the investigation. Now he's admitting that he knew the Alberts. Okay, they're just not really close friends. Denied that Proctor searched for nudes. Well, he said no nudes yet, right? And it was acknowledged. As to the remaining allegations, Proctor's without knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief as to their truth. Well, he never thought in any reality other than the upside down, inside out Narnia of Norfolk County. He never thought these text messages would see the light of day. But here's the thing is that the feds got involved. That's how they got him. Paragraph 72 is just flat out denied. And paragraph 72 of the complaint says, because he was determined to put serious charges on Ms. Reed, Proctor ignored the fact that the Commonwealth's medical examiner could not conclude that Mr. O'Keefe's death was a homicide, determining instead that the manner of his death could not be determined. The medical examiner also refused to conclude that Mr. O'Keefe died as a result of being struck by a vehicle, and later testified at the trial that his injuries were not consistent with a car strike. Remember, trial 2, Irene Scordi Bello. Proctor later admitted that in his entire career, he had never seen a homicide investigation where the medical examiner could not determine the manner of death. He did testify to that. He only testified in trial one. So if you didn't watch trial one, go back and watch it, because it's better than any Lifetime movie that you could ever watch. The real thing. But he remained undeterred in his quest to charge Ms. Reed, as he later admitted the medical examiner's refusal to rule the death a homicide did not matter to him, because either way, in quotes, either way, Ms. Reed was going to be charged. And he just flat out denies that. Clayton John says, he absolutely was the fall guy. Wait, where's this? Hold on. Says, I believe Proctor was given directions / fall guy. A lot of people think he was the fall guy, but he tried so hard. He appealed to try and get his job back. And then what had happened was Judge Krupp, also in Norfolk County, in another case involving Michael Proctor, because you can't make it up. The Miles King case, it doesn't come up for trial yet, and the Brian Walsh case and other companion cases. They made a motion, the defendants in those other cases, some of which are still pending, and they said to Judge Krupp, based on the fact that, Michael Proctor said all of these heinous things during his investigation of the John O'Keefe murder and his investigation into Karen Reed, all of these horrific things showing bias against Karen Reed, our clients, he may have said some biased things about our clients too, so we're entitled to his phone extraction. And Michael Proctor's attorneys came into court, and this was just this past August. Michael Proctor's attorneys came into court and they said, Judge, listen, first of all, Michael Proctor got himself a new phone in February 2024, because they all did. He got himself a new phone, and ever since then, he's had everything set to auto delete every 30 days. So, you're not really going to get much. And yet, Judge Krupp said, well, fine, I don't care. Give them the phone, give the Commonwealth the phone and let them extract it. And lo and behold, when they extracted Proctor's phone, they got 12 years worth of data, 12 years, hundreds of thousands of items, including text messages, video files, photos of intimate body parts. 12 years worth of stuff. And it was so horrific. It was so horrific that Proctor's union attorney dropped him like a bad habit on a Saturday, and that very same day, Michael Proctor withdrew his appeal before the Post Commission to try and get his job back. Oop, there it is. Guess the auto delete thing didn't work. And Karen Reed's attorneys, as I pointed out before, because there's another case of the O'Keefes versus Karen Reed, the Waterfall and McCarthy's, saying it's a wrongful death case against Karen Reed, saying you hit John O'Keefe and killed him with your car. And therefore we're suing you, like a wrongful death motor vehicle accident case. The problem is she's been acquitted. That's just one of the problems. And the other problem is John O'Keefe was not hit by a car, and a car didn't hit John O'Keefe. But Karen Reed made a motion in that case saying, listen, we're entitled to that entire phone extraction because my defense is it wasn't me. The House defendants were involved in this. Proctor and his cronies decided to pin it on me, and I need that phone extraction too, and she's going to get it too. And they have it, and it's now been handed over subject to protective order. Something's going on with my chat over here on StreamYard. It's freezing. Hope I'm not freezing, but if I do freeze, I hope it's a good freeze frame and, not a crazy expression. 12 years, and he became a trooper in 2013. So it goes back to even before he became a trooper, it goes all the way back to 2012, because, you just can't make it up. You just can't. And here's the thing. If you are employed by the state or the county or the Massachusetts State Police and you use your personal cell phone to conduct business or talk about your cases that you're investigating, it becomes fodder. It becomes discoverable. He never thought any of this would see the light of day. And here we are. And he now has to pay to defend himself in this federal lawsuit, because right now it's in federal court. And these lawyers charge by the hour, and they're not cheap. my friend who said earlier that you went to law school with this attorney, tell me how much they charge an hour, because he's not getting a union attorney because they've dropped him. If you're on duty and you get sued and you're still with the force, they provide you with a union attorney. You don't have to pay. Proctor has to pay. Proctor, as to paragraph 71, says, 72 is the one that we just read in its entirety. He denies. Moving on, Proctor and Buchanan plant certain evidence and make false statements in court and other legal documents to frame Karen Reed. Another 5 memberships was gifted by Kay Willis, the realtor. Thank you, Kay Willis. I love you so much. You're amazing. And I will get back to you guys on your super chats as soon as I finish the next section. I love you guys so much. Kay Willis is here for all your real estate needs. If you want to get out in Norfolk County or anywhere south of Boston, really, or you want to buy, call Kay Willis. She's your girl. Thank you, Kay. Hold, please. Oh, you guys keep me laughing. Well done. Well done, Zelda. Who's Rosemary's baby now? Oh, Rosemary Scapicchio is a defense attorney in Massachusetts. She's my spirit animal, and she's the one who was able to get this phone extraction. Also, Larry Tipton was involved, but he was kind of busy because Brian Walsh's case was really coming up fast. And Rosemary Scapicchio, who's Rosemary's baby now? Well done. Thank you, Kay, for thanking me. Thank you for thanking me. It's like a mutual appreciation society. I have a gavel somewhere in my prop bin, but I'll get it. Let the Mutual Admiration Society meeting commence, everyone. My God. It's because you can't make it up. '73. Denied that Proctor manufactured a case against Ms. Reed, because that's what they allege. Denied that Proctor generated false incriminating evidence against Ms. Reed, but admitted that Proctor took no photographs of the inside or the garage of 34 Fairview, because of course he didn't. At least he admits it. As to the remaining allegation, other defendants, not me, to the extent that anything could be read against me, nope, I don't know nothing about nothing. Paragraph 74 says, by approximately 2:30 p.m. on January 29th, before he had even met or interviewed Ms. Reed or seen her Lexus SUV, Proctor had already ordered seizure of the vehicle at her parents' home in Dighton. And we know that. How do we know? Because at 2:30, there's a phone call from Proctor to Dighton saying, hey, listen, we're coming up there to seize a vehicle. And, we need, I guess it's courtesy to have a local officer meet you there. And so Nicholas Barros met him at Karen's parents' house. And boy, was he a star witness in trial number 2. By 4:17 p.m., the vehicle was in MSP's physical possession. The vehicle was then towed to the CPD Sallyport, even though the MSP has at least 2 closer barracks, and Massachusetts was in the middle of a historic nor'easter. Proctor knew he had more leeway to manipulate evidence regarding the SUV at the Canton PD than at MSP's facilities, and he knew that he needed to have that evidence in close proximity to the crime scene at 34 Fairview Road. See, they didn't teach you that in the Lifetime movie, did they? Paragraph 74 reads, and this is what he says, admitted that Ms. Reed's SUV was towed to the CPD Sallyport, admitted that Massachusetts was in the middle of the nor'easter, and as the rest of it, denied. Sallyport is just like a fancy word for garage. Garage, like a police garage, or as Kelly Dever said, garage. '75 alleges in the complaint, before the vehicle arrived at the garage, Ms. Reed's Lexus taillight had a minor crack but was intact. The crack occurred when Ms. Reed backed into Mr. O'Keefe's car at 5 a.m. this morning as she was leaving to search for him. That incident was captured on video. That is one thing that the Lifetime movie did get right. And the Lifetime movie made it very clear that those 2 cars really collided, because you could hear it. You could hear it, right? Was it like, it was, I mean, you could hear it. It was like in that dramatization of what really happened here, it was a pretty hard hit of Karen backing out of the driveway and hitting John's car, right? In the driveway. Proctor says denied that Ms. Reed's Lexus taillight had a minor crack and that the taillight was intact before it arrived at the garage. Well, hey, how about why didn't you take a picture of it when it was in her parents' driveway in Dighton? Because you didn't. If it was fully smashed and obliterated, you would have taken a picture because you had your phone in your pocket. How do we know? Because we have all your text messages and your total phone extraction. But wait, what if? And I'm just hypothesizing here. I don't know if this is true, but what if? Now that they have the entire phone extraction from Proctor, what if he did take a picture of that taillight in the driveway at Karen's parents' house in Dighton? And what if it does show that the taillight is only cracked? Well, slam dunk, game over. Can you say game over? I'm not a gamer, but game over. What if? Is it possible? I mean, anything's possible, right? Because wouldn't a good investigator take a picture of the car? Wouldn't they do it? Proctor also denied that the crack occurred when Ms. Oops. I don't know what just happened there. Denied that the crack occurred when Ms. Reed backed. I'm getting so excited. It's going crazy. Backed into Mr. O'Keefe's car at 5 a.m. that morning as she was leaving to go search for him. As to the video referenced in this paragraph, it speaks for itself. It does. And then paragraph 76 says, Proctor and Buchanan followed the vehicle from Dighton and arrived at the Canton PD at 5:35 p.m., just moments after the tow truck with the Lexus. Proctor admits that. And then the complaint says, at some point after the vehicle arrived at the Sallyport, the right rear taillight was almost entirely destroyed. Well, Proctor denied that at some point after the vehicle arrived at the Sallyport, the right rear taillight was almost completely destroyed. As to the rest of it, I don't know anything about anything. Because the rest of it says, video taken from different angles in the Sallyport shows Buchanan, Proctor, Canton Police Chief Ken Berkowitz, who is no longer on this mortal coil, as our friend Kathy of Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo would say. He's eating at the Endless Heaven buffet. Ken Berkowitz and other individuals near the taillight, but notably no video captures the taillight's appearance at the precise time it arrived at the Sallyport. Yeah, that was crazy, huh? The available surveillance video from the Sallyport, as well as Canton PD access card swipe log obtained by a separate law enforcement agency, the FBI, reveals seemingly unfettered access to the Sallyport by a myriad of individuals throughout the evening of January 29th, including just before and just after 5:30 p.m. Parker's like, yeah, I don't know anything about that. I don't know nothing. Right. Thank you, Be in Trouble. Be in Trouble has done the Lord's work. Be in Trouble bought a Lexus taillight, a real exemplar, and showed us on his YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed, go over there and subscribe. How difficult it is to break a taillight, to obliterate a taillight. He did lots of experiments at his own expense, and we love him over here. He says the video is either they're distorted and missing or they never looked for it. Right. Right. $77 denied. Oh, 78 admitted that one camera was inverted. Oh, if you only watched the Lifetime movie and you didn't hear about this, listen up, buttercups. 77, which he denied, says one or more of them destroyed the tail light, secretly took pieces of it into their possession, and then planted some of them in various places at 34 Fairview and on Mr. O'Keefe's clothes. He said he denies that outright, but we know about the taillight fairy. We know. Paragraph 78. Are you ready for it? Baby, let the games begin. Let the games begin. I think in song lyrics. Paragraph 78 of the complaint says, knowing that there were video cameras both inside and outside the Sallyport, Proctor and Buchanan worked together to obscure their role in manipulating the right rear taillight and then ultimately to present false evidence at the first criminal trial. Specifically, Proctor directed Buchanan to secure video footage from surveillance cameras located both inside and outside the Sallyport garage, or garage, which he did. Those videos were manipulated in two significant ways. First, a critical 42-minute portion was deleted from the footage from the Sally Port front wall camera. The portion from 5:08:02 p.m. to 5:50:50 p.m., which included the exact time that Ms. Reed's Lexus arrived at the garage. Could you make it up? No, you can't. This footage would have shown that the taillight was intact. Second, footage from the Sallyport back wall camera was inverted, which made the right side of Ms. Reed's vehicle appear to be the left side and vice versa. Another camera, main driveway side exterior, captured the back end of the Lexus that had arrived at Canton PD, but was too grainy to decipher the condition of the passenger taillight. Oh, and look, you guys are so creative with your usernames. Look, it's Devers Garage Door. Is that Alec Murdoch in your profile picture? If you guys did not watch the Hulu series on Alec Murdoch, go do it. Go do it. Devers Garage Door says, it's garage. Valerie Jordan says, I'll never, ever forget garage. False memory, Dever. So if you don't understand what inverted means, it's the video is like flipped. So when the officers, it appeared that Michael Proctor and some people were surrounded, that they were around the passenger. Wait, which taillight was broken? It was I'm trying to remember as she backs out of the driveway. It's the passenger side taillight is broken. And it was inverted. It's a false memory. It's like you're looking in a mirror. That's what he says, like you're looking in a mirror. And you guys, all you have eagle eyes. That did not get by you because all of the numbers on the garage doors were backwards. And that antique police car, which they auctioned off, I think. And I don't know how much they got for it. I got to follow up on that because they were auctioning off that antique police car. I want to know who bought it. The letters were all backwards on the video, and it was a surprise to the defense. They had no idea. Buchanan's on the stand. This is trial one. They throw up the video, and they're talking about it, and it looks to us like the passenger side is the passenger side, the driver's side is the driver's side, and it looks like Proctor and a couple of his cronies go over to the driver's side taillight, and they're over there doing some stuff, and there's ghosts coming in and out of the video, and people are appearing and disappearing, and then it was wild, right? It was like crazy. And on direct examination, Buchanan was asked by Adam Lally. Sergeant Buchanan, is this a fair and accurate representation of the way the Sallyport looked on January 29th of 2022? And Buchanan said yes. And then the wheels are turning because during trial one, we had the defense team. We called him Craig of the Tiny Desk. He was amazing. He was he ran all the AV for the defense team during trial number one, Craig Bates. You could see the like whispers and like the defense is like looking and they're like, stuff is backwards and what, this is not real. I mean, this is not, it's backwards. It's inverted. And all of you guys picked it up too. And then there was a break for the day. And I don't remember if it was a day off the next day or if it was a weekend, but I do know there was some time in between that time and the time that Buchanan was crossed. And it wasn't until Buchanan was crossed by Alan Jackson that Alan Jackson said something such as like, and I'm going to summarize, Sergeant Buchanan, you said on direct examination that this video is a fair and accurate representation of the way the Sallyport looked on January 29th, 2022, didn't you? And he's like, yeah. And he said, well, that's a lie, isn't it? He's like, well, I mean, what do you mean? And he said, well, it's mirrored. It's clearly mirrored. What looks like the passenger side is really the driver's side. And what looks like the driver's side is really the passenger side. And he's like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, it's the way it is, but like it's mirrored, you know, it's like when you look in a mirror and like everything's still there, but like it's just like flipped. Like no big whoop. It should have been a mistrial. It wasn't. I can't wait. Oh, are the sidebars out on that? Because I can't wait to see that. The sidebars in the inverted video. I think they're out. I just haven't read them yet, right? And here in paragraph 78, Proctor's like, yeah, admitted that one camera was inverted, and that was their story, and they're sticking to it. That one of the cameras, that's just the way it's recorded. Not a big deal. It's recorded that way. That's the remaining allegations denied, denying everything, deny till you die. Paragraph 79 of the complaint says, the video, 79, the videos from inside and outside the Sally Port and Proctor's request for Buchanan to obtain it was intentionally hidden from Karen Reed and her defense attorneys for more than 2 years to avoid scrutiny. Right. First time they ever saw it was at trial. The video was then sprung on them immediately before and during the first criminal trial. Right. And that criminal trial started in 2024, summer. Maybe May, maybe spring. One driveway camera's footage was not revealed to the defense until just prior to the trial, the start of the second trial. Everyone hit the like button. Thank you. Thanks, Scott, for reminding. In fact, Buchanan presented one part of the video during his direct testimony, and that's what I just told you about with Lally. Buchanan narrated the video to the jury, correctly identified that Proctor was at the rear of the vehicle, but claimed that he never approached the right rear taillight of the vehicle. That testimony, however, was entirely false. As he well knew, the video that Buchanan authenticated as fair and accurate was actually neither fair nor accurate. Coabulate. Oh my God, it's bringing me back to Brennan. Because it had been inverted. Proctor was actually behind the right taillight for a significant period, but because it was inverted, it appeared in the video that he was behind the left taillight. They hoped this would allow Buchanan to lie about this issue without detection. With this video and Buchanan's false testimony, the MSP, Proctor, and Buchanan attempted to mislead the jury in order to conceal the tampering with and planting of taillight material. Proctor says, denied. Paragraph 80, Proctor and Buchanan also took taillight pieces from the Sally Port, brought them back to 34 Fairview to plant them in the location where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found, and then falsified various documents in an attempt to hide their conduct. Proctor says, denied. In warrant applications to the Stoughton District Court and Norfolk Superior Court for searches of Google's electronic records, Ring videos, Ms. Reed's phone, Ms. Reed's vehicle, cell tower records, and other sources of information, Proctor swore that he seized Ms. Reed's vehicle from her parents' home at 5:30 p.m. on January 29th of 2022 and had the vehicle towed to the Canton PD. Reports shared by the Dighton PD in 2023 revealed the Lexus was towed from Dighton at 4:17 p.m. They did get that right. Didn't they talk about that? I think they did talk about when I can't remember. I can't remember if Karen Reed talked about it that on Rotten Mango. I think it was on Rotten Mango. What not in the Lifetime movie, right? Okay. Proctor's assertion that he seized it at 5:30 was intentionally false to hide the fact that the car was in police custody 73 minutes longer than indicated in his sworn affidavits. And to that, Proctor says, paragraph 81, admitted Proctor applied for search warrants to the Stoughton District Court and Norfolk Superior Court for searches of Google's electronic records, Ring videos, Ms. Reed's phone, Ms. Reed's vehicle, and cell tower records, denied that Proctor's assertion that he seized the Lexus was intentionally false and done to hide any facts. And he called it a scrivener's error. It was a scrivener's error, right? As to the remaining allegations, Proctor is without knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief as to their truth. And then the complaint goes on to say Proctor maintained that false narrative because it would hide the exact time frame when he had the opportunity to smash the taillight and sprinkle the pieces on the lawn. And however, unbeknownst to him, there was Ring video from her parents' home. And Proctor's like, yeah, denied. 83, admitted that Proctor retrieved Mr. O'Keefe's clothes from the floor of the hospital where Mr. O'Keefe was pronounced deceased. As to the remaining allegations, they're denied. Well, paragraph 83 says, Proctor also deposited the SUV taillight pieces that he and others removed from the vehicle in the Sally Port on Mr. O'Keefe's clothes. Proctor retrieved Mr. O'Keefe's clothes from the floor of the hospital where he was pronounced deceased. Instead of securing the clothes in a sealed container or bag, as protocol requires, Proctor and Buchanan drove them around in his car all day and then placed them in the Norfolk County DA's office for at least 6 days, where they were accessible to Proctor, Buchanan, and any other MSP trooper. He's like, yeah, well, I did pick up the clothes off the floor of the hospital, but no, the rest of it, no, denied. Then it says Proctor and Buchanan failed, 84. Proctor and Buchanan failed to create a log to document the chain of custody of the clothing. Therefore, and by design, there's no record of when, how many times, and under what circumstances Proctor and Buchanan touched, manipulated, handled, or otherwise tampered with that clothing, and he just denies it. We never saw a log of chain of custody. '85 of the complaint says the MSP evidence submission handbook dictates that chain of custody begins at the time of collection, and that the collector seal envelope evidence packages as soon as possible. And, oh, please. That's better. And to ensure integrity of evidence items and limit loss of transient evidence, he's like, yeah, well, that manual, well, it just like speaks for itself. It speaks for itself. No response is necessary. But 86, he denied that Proctor or Buchanan placed pieces of the SUV taillight on the clothes. And as to the rest of it, I don't know nothing about nothing. Because the allegation is that, according to the complaint, paragraph 86, the chain of custody for all of John O'Keefe's clothing, as well as dozens of pieces of taillight material, does not begin until March 14th of 2022. Yes, the date of death was 1/29/22. And the chain of custody information does not begin until March 14th of 2022. And he's like, I don't really know. But I didn't do it. It wasn't me. 87 alleges in the complaint Proctor also planted pieces of glass on the bumper of Ms. Reed's SUV while it was in his possession in the Sallyport garage, which he then claimed to have recovered later on February 1st. Proctor planted this evidence to make it look like these shards originated from a cocktail glass that Mr. O'Keefe was holding when he exited the waterfall bar. Evidently, Proctor did not plan on Karen Reed's attorneys insisting on forensic testing on the glass shards, which showed that they did not match the cocktail glass. That's true. You might not know that if you didn't watch the trial in Mr. O'Keefe's possession. In fact, the 5 glass pieces originated from multiple different sources. One shard of glass on the bumper did match another piece of glass that had been in Proctor's possession during the investigation. The only way for the glass to have ended up on the SUV bumper is that Proctor planted it there in an attempt to connect the vehicle to the death of Mr. O'Keefe. That was paragraph 87. And he says, denied that Proctor planted pieces of glass on the bumper of Ms. Reed's SUV, further denied that Proctor planted any evidence to make it look like glass shards originated from a cocktail glass that Mr. O'Keefe was holding when he exited the waterfall, denied that the only way for the glass to have ended up on the SUV bumper is that Proctor planted it in an attempt to connect the vehicle. I didn't do it. It wasn't me. I am ethical. I did a great investigation. And yet, there's still no justice for John O'Keefe. Next section is called Other Aspects of Conflicted and Corrupt Investigation. Proctor and Buchanan's and MSP's investigation was rife with other examples of corruption and bias. Denied. For example, despite evidence that Brian Albert may have had video surveillance at the house, neither Proctor nor Buchanan nor any member of the MSP issued subpoenas to Ring or any other home surveillance company, and no one questioned any other member of the Albert family about the presence of video monitoring. Denied. That's denied. Proctor and the MSP also failed to track down other important witnesses. For example, Brian Loughran, also known as Lucky Loughran, to those of us who know Lucky from his testimony in both trials. He was the snowplow driver who turned out to be one of the most significant witnesses in the entire criminal trial. Proctor and his colleagues never spoke to him during their investigation, and only did so once Loughran was interviewed by a separate law enforcement agency, FBI, and provided statements inconsistent with the MSP's narrative 18 months after Ms. Reed was already indicted and awaiting trial. That's when they interviewed Lucky. And Proctor says, Paragraph 90, admitted that he interviewed Brian Loughran, not Lachlan, Loughran. There's a lot of Loughlin's in this case. A town of Canton snowplow operator. Asked the remaining allegations. I don't know. He also denied in paragraph 92 that he never made any effort to track down Lucky. And he's denying that he secretly made efforts to protect any Albert family members, because that's all alleged too. 94. Well, let's see, 93. It goes on to talk about the Ford Edge. Lucky Loughran saw a Ford Edge outside the house around 3:30 a.m. and in front of the Alberts' home. And so he didn't go down the street and plow because he knew the Alberts, Lucky Loughran did, the snowplow driver, since they were children. The Albert family grew up in that house. And he was trying to do them a solid by not calling in a tow. He just didn't plow, but he saw the Ford Edge, and then the Ford Edge was gone. And then John's body appeared. However, Proctor didn't do anything to track down the Ford Edge. And as to paragraph 93, which alleges Proctor also secretly made efforts to protect other Albert family members during the investigation who may have had a role in Mr. O'Keefe's death. Witness Julie Nagel told Proctor that Colin Albert, Brian Albert's nephew, had been present at the house the night of January 28th to 29th. But Proctor omitted his name from his official summary of Ms. Nagel's interview, even though he listed all the others who had been present at the house with Colin. When Ms. Reed's attorneys filed a motion to obtain Proctor's notes, his handwritten memorialization of the Julie Nagel interview mirrored almost exactly what was typed up in its police report, except for the words Colin Albert. So Colin Albert's name was in his handwritten notes, but he just didn't type it up. Another Scrivener's error? Let's see. Proctor says, denied that Proctor secretly made efforts to protect any Albert family members during the investigation. As for the rest of it, I don't know. 94 alleges in the complaint Proctor's interactions with Kevin Albert, Brian Albert's brother, during the investigation also demonstrate his close relationship with the Albert family, as well as his propensity for violating MSP rules and Massachusetts criminal laws. Repeatedly, Proctor used his personal cell phone to speak with Kevin, a Canton PD officer, instead of official channels when he coordinated interviews of witnesses, even though Canton PD was recused from the investigation. Proctor admitted that Proctor used his personal cell phone to speak with Kevin Albert. As to the rest of it, nope. Denied. And then they get into the part about traveling in Proctor's cruiser in the summer of 2022, together drinking with Kevin Albert on Cape Cod. And the complaint says at the end of the night, Kevin Albert forgot to bring home his gun and badge and left them in Proctor's cruiser. Proctor admitted that Kevin Albert traveled in Proctor's cruiser to Cape Cod and admitted that Kevin Albert left his badge in Proctor's cruiser. As to the rest of it, denied. He didn't find the gun. Dude, where's my gun? Dude, where's my gun? Paragraph 96 goes on to talk about Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully hiding videos from Karen's defense team involving Brian Higgins' activities in Canton PD and in the parking lot and inside the police station on the night or early morning hours of January 29th, 2022, which wasn't even turned over to the defense until trial 2. And Proctor just denies all that. Moving on to the indictments, trials, and aftermath. Proctor admits that Karen was arrested pursuant to a criminal complaint. And we know that the arrest was on February 1, 2022. She was required to post $50,000 for bail. Several other conditions, including losing her driver's license and stay away orders from the O'Keefe family and John O'Keefe III's home. She couldn't even go to the funeral because there was a stay away order. She couldn't even go to the funeral. Ms. Reed was tried twice. Oh, I'm sorry. And then 98, Ms. Reed was later rearrested on June 9th of 2022 after being indicted for second-degree murder when they upcharged her. And then her bail was set at $100,000. In February of 2023, her bail was reduced to $80,000. He's like, yeah, well, I don't really know about that, but I do know that she was rearrested. And I do know that she was tried twice, so I'll admit to that. And with regard to the rest of that, I don't really know. But the complaint only says she was tried twice by the Commonwealth. The first trial started in first trial started April 2024 and ended on July 1st after the court ordered a mistrial because of the hung jury. Paragraph 100 calls for conclusions of law. 101 is denied. This is all about how it affected Karen and her ailments. Crohn's disease, multiple sclerosis, suffered years of intense stress and emotional harm. He's like, yeah, no. 103, the defendants concocted a plan. That's the defendants. All the defendants are like House defendants. And Tully, Proctor, Buchanan concocted a plan, executed that plan, and framed an innocent woman, and they are now responsible for these extraordinary damages Ms. Reed has suffered at their hands. And he's like, nope, denied. Denied. MSP investigates and punishes Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully for their misconduct during the investigations. Well, it is admitted here that Proctor testified at the state grand jury. The complaint says Proctor wrote more than 1/3 of the police reports in this case, testified at the state grand jury 3 separate times, interviewed every member of the Albert and McCabe families, had possession of all of John's clothing, until at least March of 2022, and all of the taillight pieces. And he's like, well, I admit that I testified at the grand jury, but the rest of it, nope. In fact, ultimately, paragraph 105 of the complaint says, ultimately, Michael Proctor was relieved from duty and transferred out of the detective unit at the Norfolk District Attorney's Office on July 7th, 2024, mere days after the conclusion on Ms. Reed's first trial, and Proctor was terminated from the MSP on March 19th of 2025. Upon a release from the district attorney of more implicating text messages from Proctor's phone on October 18th, 2025, Proctor officially ended his appeal with the Civil Service Commission. Proctor says, admitted Proctor was relieved from duty. He was relieved from duty. You were fired. You were canned. Do you know how hard it is to get fired from the Massachusetts State Police? Do you know how hard it is to have a union lawyer, a police union lawyer, drop you? Proctor's an overachiever because he did both. The police union is second only, I think, to the teachers union in strength of union. Tell me I'm wrong. But for the union to drop you, I mean, it's hard. What an overachiever he is. He admitted he was relieved from duty, that he was transferred out of the detective unit of the DA's office, admitted that he was terminated from the MSP. As the remaining allegations, I don't know. And then other defendants are referenced, and he's like, I don't know. It wasn't me. Shaggy defense. And then they go on to talk about the counts and all of the theories of law under which Karen Reed is suing these defendants. Malicious prosecution. These are all civil rights violations. Malicious prosecution. And I'll just scroll through this slowly so you can see. Nothing. I don't know nothing. I didn't violate her rights against unreasonable search and seizure. Deny, deny, deny. Supervisor liability is count 2. And because he wasn't a supervisor, that's not applicable to him. Count 3 is conspiracy to deprive Ms. Reed of her Fourth Amendment rights. And he's like, nope, I deny that I ever did that. And it's repetitive because it goes through some of the same, the interviewing of Higgins, the interviewing of the McCabes, and then Massachusetts Civil Rights Act. Yeah, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. Common law malicious prosecution. Nope, I didn't do it. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Nope, I didn't do it. Civil conspiracy. Nope, I didn't do that either. And here are his affirmative defenses. Here's what he's saying. The first 2 he put at the very top of the answer, which I thought was unusual, but here he's going to continue with number 3. Plaintiff is entitled to and plaintiff's claims are barred by the doctrine of qualified immunity, which means I was on the job as a police officer and therefore I can't be sued. Defense number 4, Proctor is entitled to and plaintiff's claims are barred by the doctrine of common law immunity. Defense number 5, at all times, Proctor acted in good faith without malice and without corruption. Well, I think we beg to differ. Defense number 6, that Proctor's alleged actions and omissions were not the proximate, factual, or legal or but-for cause of plaintiff's alleged injuries. We'll talk about proximate cause in a moment. Defense number 7, plaintiff's alleged injuries were caused by persons or entities for whom Proctor is not responsible. Defense number 8, plaintiff comes to the court with unclean hands. These are all just boilerplate, common defenses in civil cases, and you throw them all in there and you hope something sticks. At all times, Proctor acted reasonably and in good faith. Plaintiff has failed to mitigate her damages. Plaintiff's complaint is frivolous and not brought in good faith. And so I want my attorney's fees and costs and all my things. And defense number 12, at no time was he extreme, outrageous, or beyond the bounds of decency, because that would entitle the plaintiff to let me see where this is. Punitive damages. Defense number 13, plaintiff's claim is barred by the statute of limitations. No, it's not. Proctor's actions and conduct were protected by legal process, and therefore plaintiff cannot recover. And at all times, Proctor acted in good faith and in accordance with the Constitution and the laws of the United States and Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And if the plaintiff was deprived of any rights, which Proctor denies, the plaintiff had adequate post-deprivation remedies and therefore cannot recover. Again, this is all boilerplate stuff. Proctor was at all times acting in the furtherance of his official duties and relying on a facially valid court order, and therefore is entitled to quasi-judicial immunity. So if I don't get full immunity, just give me quasi-judicial immunity. Partial immunity, I'll take it out. I'll take anything at this point. 18, Proctor submits that because Ms. Reed was indicted by a grand jury, he's entitled to presumption of probable cause. Generally, grand jury indictment definitively establishes probable cause. Defense number 19, the plaintiff was not deprived of any rights protected under any federal, state, or constitutional or statutory provisions, and therefore the plaintiff cannot recover. Proctor didn't initiate criminal proceedings against the plaintiff, and therefore the plaintiff cannot recover. And Proctor did not withhold or conceal any exculpatory evidence from the prosecution. But even if such evidence was concealed or withheld, it was not material to the issues presented in plaintiff's criminal. That's like, how could you even write that with a straight face? And therefore, plaintiff cannot recover. Plaintiff fails to allege a conspiracy with adequate specificity. Yeah, I know. Guys, and Ben's mom is like, I don't care if these defenses are normal. When you attach them to Proctor, they're laughable. Yeah, and if you lie to the grand jury, it doesn't apply. And all that will be, this will all be litigated. This litigation is going to go on for years and years and years. Proctor is immune from suit, liability under the litigation privilege. And plaintiff's tort claims should be dismissed because, you didn't state a claim against me. And I reserve my right to add some more stuff as I deem necessary. And as I can spin around some more bullshit, it's time for the button. Proctor demands a jury trial. And here's his lawyer, Pierce Davis and Paritano, LLP, signed by Matthew J. Hamel, Hamel. 3 lawyers are listed here: Thomas DeGangi, Jason Crotty, and Matthew Hamel. Matthew Hamel is the one who signed the answer. And there's a viewer in the chat who said she went to school with at least one of these guys. Whew. It's a lot of reading for a girl. Becca says, I wish we could see the federal case. It won't be televised. Well, here's the thing. It may not stay in federal court either, because a federal judge is going to decide whether or not the case will remain in federal court. And because Karen Reed has already told everyone that she intends to sue the municipalities of Canton and the Massachusetts State Police, they might not have jurisdiction in federal court, so it might get kicked back to state court. It's too early to tell, but typically cameras are not allowed in federal court. And so we'll see. We will see. Now I can read your super chats. Thank you so very much for waiting. And that was Single Mama to 4 Crazies who said, I graduated from law school with this attorney. Didn't know him, but it's a fun fact. It is a fun fact. Thanks, New Jersey Kathy, who says, the worst part about Proctor was he was completely unsupervised. Can you imagine any job that you are not accountable to anyone above you? Yeah, imagine that. It is the foxes guarding the hen house. It is wild times. It is wild times. How do I close this thing? All right. We still have Howie Carr to read, so hang on for a few more minutes. I don't know why this is like freaking out. Why are you freaking out on me? I don't want it totally full screen. All right, there we go. Yes, thank you for your 10, Kathy. You are not alone. Be not afraid. We go with you always. Courtney H. from Florida says, JC has no clue how amazing you are. Oh, thank you so very much. Why don't you get on Twitter and tell her? Thanks for being here for 2 months. 80% of my audience tells me they're not on the cesspool of Twitter, so you guys don't even know what happens over there. I don't know unless somebody tells me, or I go over to take a peek to see get my finger on the pulse of what the hell's going on. Because it's crazy. You don't have to engage on there to look there. The Kiwi Crypt Keeper says, I was totally convinced after your interview with Garrett, he was brilliant, and I was really disgusted with Judge Cannoni's denial of his testimony. I think in the end, he was going to be allowed to testify, right? But they didn't call him. But now I don't recall. So I don't know that she denied Garrett Wing in trial 2. I thought he was okay, but they didn't call him. Thank you for tuning in from New Zealand and for your super chat. And Prairie Wolf became a new member, and welcome. I think you're going to like it here. Shelly Bean says, I'm at the beginning and you were not freezing. Thank you. Thank you for that. Causes the Thesaurus, thanks for your 10. Says, funny coincidence, a guy named Brian Higgins was involved in the Michigan governor kidnapping case. That is crazy. That's crazy. Thanks for your 10. Tina's window says, I wish I could invert this to $661. Thank you, Tina. Thanks, JPK. Be a super sticker. I appreciate you guys so much. You're so awesome. Thank you, Lindsay, for your Venmo. Says, hypothetically, if there was some sort of confession in Proctor's phone extraction or messages directly contradicting what is in these papers, is there consequences of not being honest in his response? Technically, hypothetically, no. I mean, the plaintiff always has to prove her case, right? The plaintiff brings her case in civil court. She's got to prove it. The things that he admits in his answer, she doesn't have to prove. They're deemed admitted. And so when you deny something, it just means she's got to prove it. So that's a great question. And I thank you for that. But hypothetically, technically, usually defendants deny everything. And so it is not at all. It is not at all uncommon. Sheila, Sheila, thank you for buying me 3 matcha lattes and says, here's some matcha to get you through all the work you're doing for us today. Thank you so very much. Okay. Do you guys want to read Howie Carr? Do you have any more questions? Oh, I was gonna explain to you but for causation. Okay. And this is how a torts professor described it to me in law school, and I use this example. So hopefully you can understand but for causation and how to prove a negligence case. A negligence case in civil court is like a 4-legged stool. Okay. You need 4 legs for the stool to stand. And without one of these legs, you cannot prove your civil case. If I'm frozen, refresh your browser. I don't know what to tell you. Look, Verizon was down worldwide. A lot of these, StreamYard and others, are on the cloud and whatever, and it's a thing. And so there's nothing I can do about it right now, unless you want me to abort and not read Howie Carr, but I want to read Howie Carr to you. So what I could do is just like do this. Oops. And then I could just talk to you with my picture, and then it's not going to annoy you. But I mean, that's so cheesy. Oh, but that is a nice headshot from my past. I could do that. A lot of people do that. They never, ever, ever show their camera. And I'm like, okay, you got a great face for radio, I guess. Let's see if I can come back now. Wait, can I come back from the beyond, from the great beyond? Here I am. I'm back. Okay, four-legged stool. Duty, breach, causation, damages. Got it? Duty, breach, causation, damages. These are the four legs of a negligence case in civil court. A duty must be owed from the defendant to the plaintiff. A duty. Well, in Michael Proctor's case, he had a duty to fairly investigate the murder of John O'Keefe and not show bias, right? So he owed a duty to the plaintiff. You have to show that he breached that duty. Did he breach that duty? By doing the things that he did and showing bias and not investigating certain people he should have investigated. And then causation, which means that because he breached that duty, it caused the plaintiff to sustain damages. Okay, so there has to be proximate cause between what the defendant did and the injuries that were sustained by the plaintiff. So if you don't have all four legs of that stool, your negligence case is not going to stand. Duty, breach, causation, damages. So there has to be causation and you have to show damages. If you have no damages, you have no case. Okay? So there's that. Before I leave you for the evening, I want you to smash the like button and we're going to read Howie Carr because Howie Carr's on it. And because we love Howie, I've got his book. Oh, it's not here. Usually it's right next to me so I can show it to you and say, go buy Howie's book. And I don't make money from his book. So I just, it's a great read. If you need something to read it. Howie Carr's column this morning in the Boston Herald is this: Curse of Karen Read strikes again. For many of you, the Boston Herald is behind a paywall, so it is my pleasure to bring it to you. Here we go. Let me just make it bigger so you can read it better. Let's see. Is that better? That's better and better and better and best. Curse of Karen Read strikes again. Thank you, Harry, for keeping us entertained. The aftermath of the Karen Read murder trials is starting to remind me of what supposedly happened to all the looters who robbed King Tut's tomb in Egypt more than a century ago. The legend is that they all died horrible premature deaths because of the ancient curse of the pharaohs. Remember all those mummy movies? It's been less than 7 months since Karen Read got her second not guilty verdict. Second is in parens. And her tormentors are all abruptly, painfully departing the scene, or at the very least becoming ensnared in one humiliation after another. Meatball Morrissey, Michael Proctor, the Canton Selectmen, the House defendants, everybody in the Canton PD, BPD Commissioner Michael Cox, Sergeant Sean Good, Kelly Dever, ... Call it the curse of Karen Read. And now the curse is taking out parties with only tangential connections to the made-for-TV, ripped from the headlines case. The most recent Karen Read tormentor to go down is former Boston Police Sergeant Marty Kraft. Well, guys, listen up, because if any of you have been following Grant Smith Ellis on Twitter, he's been telling us everything about Marty Kraft. Listen to this. Let's see if I can bring this over here so that I can read it better. All right, let's see. Hold on. His connection? He is or was a private eye. And sources say Kraft hired his former BPD pal, Brian Albert, after the dead body appeared on Albert's front lawn at 34 Fairview Road. And they all decided to pin it on the girl, Karen Read. Albert immediately retired, sold his house in Canton, and fled. But he still needed a job, and there was his BFF, Marty Kraft, in his flourishing post-police career as a PI. Now, however, Now, however, the curse of Karen Reed has reared its head once more. Marty Kraft, benefactor to the House defendants, has himself been struck down. The state police have pulled his PI's license. When you go to his website, a big message pops up. Kraft Investigations is not accepting new cases at this time. His license was not renewed after a rather tawdry incident in Newburyport last July 2nd. How he's telling us everything. Listen. Here's the tawdry incident in Newburyport last July 2nd, but also here's a beautiful picture of Karen. Isn't that such a great picture? Thank you, Howie, for not doing her dirty in the picture that you chose, because it's a beautiful picture. And I remember that day. I think that was in the appellate court, right? When they were listening, all of us were listening to the appellate arguments. Okay, listen, here is the tawdry incident in Newburyport last July 2nd. The local cops were called to a residence by the male homeowner who was in the process of divorcing his wife. When the 911 caller returned to his home, his wife wasn't there. But imagine his surprise when he discovered a fully loaded Sig Sauer P938, quote, in his bedroom tucked under the bedding, end quote. You only get one guess who the firearm in a concealed leather holster belonged to. Ooh. This from the Newburyport police report. Quote, the husband's name, redacted, also pointed to sex toys on the bed, which he claimed were not his. Mr. Redacted suspects that Redacted had guests at the residence, meaning the wife. Redacted informed me that he discovered the sex toys under the bed. A loaded firearm in the bedroom with a bunch of sex toys stuffed under the bed in a house occupied by someone well known to the police department. The cops having dealt with the owner a total of 75 times from 2020 to present, end quote. Marty Kraft, age 71, you got some splaining to do. This is Howie speaking, not me. By the way, Kraft lives in Mansfield. Karen Reed also owned a home in Mansfield until she had to sell it to pay her legal bills. Funny how the crooked cops always seem to know who was stopping by Karen's house. Just saying. ... Do you see now what I mean about the curse of Karen Reed? As a Boston cop, Kraft was famous, or maybe infamous is the better word, for always landing on his feet. I pulled his BPD officer resume from Internal Affairs, 21 pages. At one point, his father-in-law was Mickey Roche, the police commissioner, and he still got fired. He got his job back. Along with the police report, I'm going to post his entire BPD resume at my website, howiecarrshow.com. 15 of the 40 or so complaints against Kraft were sustained. A lot of them were from his fellow cops. Here's a sampling of the complaints against Kraft. Some sustained, some not. Quote, Sergeant Kraft used the term, I command you. Sergeant ignored direct order and placed his handcuffs on the suspect. Sergeant Kraft continued to shout and swear as he walked away from the area, referred to clients outside as junkies. Kraft called his place of employment, telling the manager that he was a drug dealer. He was subsequently fired from his job. Kraft used excessive force upon his person, slamming his head against the plexiglass at the booking desk. What? Not his own head, probably someone else's head. Sergeant Kraft began to verbally insult her, made racially insensitive comments to him. Sergeant Kraft responded, I don't give a bleep about internal affairs. When you get there, tell him I said bleep them. And so on. You can see why he and Brian Albert were so simpatico. But in the end, just like Brian Albert, Kraft always skated, even after the assorted suspensions. After discovering the gun among the sex toys, the Newburyport police charged Kraft with unlawful storage of a firearm. Wait, so was he banging the guy's wife? I have so many questions. Karen told us in the Rotten Mango interview that John O'Keefe told her on their second date in 2020 about the swinger scene in Canton. She said it on the Rotten Mango podcast. Rotten Mango podcast. You heard it. In district court, the clerk refused to issue a complaint, and Kraft's run of luck seemed to be continuing into his golden years. Wow. But then the state police stepped in and suddenly his PI license was not renewed. The MSP declined to comment on the record why they yanked his ticket. But I know why they did it, says Howie. It's the curse of Karen Reed. But wait, it gets even weirder. Just as Marty Kraft was losing his license, guess who decided to get a PI license of his own? None other than Brian Albert, Marty's one-time hired hand. As of October, Brian Albert became the principal of his own private eye firm known as FEBA, F-E-B-A Consulting. Not a great name. He should have called it Butt Dials R Us. Or maybe if he brought in his butt dialing buddy Brian Higgins, they could have called it Jameson and Ginger LLC. According to his license, Albert's new agency is based in Brockton at 1342 Belmont Street, Suite 104. Do you know who's upstairs in that same building? In Suite 203? None other than the ancient lawyer Kevin Reddington, who has been a lawyer for none other than Jennifer McCabe, the dentally challenged witness against Karen Reed, who lied repeatedly to the FBI without consequence. What a coincidence that one of the House defendants in Karen Reed's civil suit would set up an office in the same building as the lawyer for one of the other House defendants. Doesn't get much more Canton than that, does it? I called both Marty Kraft and Brian Albert for a comment. Neither of them returned my calls. Not even a butt dial. But I'm bummed. And that is today's Howie Carr column. Friday, January 16th, 2026. Why don't you go on over to HowieCarrShow.com, and when you see if Howie posted all of the receipts over there on his website, because I'm sure he did. If he says he did it, he's going to do it. What a day, huh? What a day. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. Who's the FE in the FEBA Consulting Group? I need to know these things. People have also pointed out that Kate Peter might have been hired by Marty Kraft, and maybe she was working for Marty Kraft at the time when everybody knew who was showing up at Karen Reed's house. I don't know. It remains to be seen. But in the Aidan Carney court documents, there's a lot of information about Kate Peter working for the Commonwealth in some fashion or another. Thank you very much, Aurora. Thanks for being you, Mel, and for being here for 18 months. You're the greatest. Kyle says, if I recall correctly, the defense didn't call him because he was grudgingly admitted, and Brennan decided he'd not call the the canine odontologist to do a rebuttal, right? So I think they didn't need him. I think they got everything. We're talking about Garrett Wang. They got everything they needed from Dr. Labasada and Dr. Russell. And so why spend the money if you don't need to? And why, the jury was getting tired. It was a long damn trial. It was like 35 days long or something like that. Nate Taylor says duty equals he admitted on TV he could have done more. Yeah, and he also said I wouldn't change a thing, didn't he? And when he did his apology tour or his press tour, his press junket, Glamasu says Brian Albert has his PI license now so he can have Kraft work under his license. Yeah, maybe. Crazy, isn't it? Because I guess the people that work under your license don't necessarily need to be PIs themselves, right, Glamasus? The way I interpret it. Thank you so much for your 5. Okay, all right. Thoughts, questions, comments, concerns before we wrap for the rest of today, because we've been on the air for many, many, many hours today, and I thank you all so very much for spending so much of your day with me. I love you guys with all of my heart. And if I don't see you soon, I'm going to die. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you smash the like button. Make sure, let's go Pats. I'll wear my jersey for you on Sunday. I heard the game is at 3, so we will not conflict. Make sure all your notifications are set and enabled on your phone so that was Kraft part of the Taint team. That is a great question, not a House defendant. I don't know. Let's go Pats. I'll allow it. I got my jersey. You know who's on my jersey. Yeah, I think Karen's channel, the Reed Files, they're doing a fundraiser for her. I don't know if she's involved in it. I don't know who's involved in it. It's called the Reed Files. It's starting at 7, Kelly told me. So check it out. Subscribe to Karen and Alan's channel. There's a little blurb on there from Alan talking about what the channel is going to be about, talking about all the injustices and Karen being able to tell her story, and it's going to be great. Boston 1D said, do you think FE is for iron equals Iron Brian? Iron Brian Albert. That's fantastic. All right, you guys, I love you with all my heart. If I don't see you soon, I'm going to die. But you're not going to know if I'm going to see you soon unless you have your notifications set. Smash the like button. Thank you, moderators. Tip your servers. Be kind to each other. Stay cool, stay kind, stay classy. And if you can't do that, above all, my friends, stay safe for the love of the traveling Mary. The name of the channel is The Read Files, READ Files. I mean, it makes sense, right? Peace out, you guys. I love you. I'll see you soon. Good night. Bye.